It's Monday, November 7th, the meeting of the planning board. The planning board is now in session. First item on the agenda is a public hearing, 250 Turnpike Road. Want to bring us up to date, Sharina?
So since the last meeting on October 17th, which was planning board public hearing number 4, an extension request was granted to continue the public hearing to November 7th with action deadline for the planning board on November 11th. We submitted a legal opinion request to council regarding some questions on the encroachment of this project onto the budding property to the south. I followed up this afternoon and we're still awaiting feedback from town council. We also received submission number 3 from the applicant's team, engineer Azimuth Engineers, James Tetro, with plans dated October 31st, 2022. The submission was provided to Fuss & O'Neill, distributed to the planning board, and also distributed to the various town departments. On October 31st, we received an extension request form from Mr. Chauvel, Attorney Chauvel, representing David Ferris. We received some comments from Freddie Gillespie at the Open Space Preservation Commission regarding some landscaping this afternoon. And actually, that was Friday. Then I had prepared a draft major site plan approval decision, very rough draft, which was provided to the applicant for review of the conditions. And that brings us to tonight, planning board public hearing number 5. And also, if you recall at the last planning board public hearing for this project, the applicant had asked, the owner of the property asked if they could, would be all right to allow interior work at the facility at his own risk, convert it to self-storage. So planning board did not have anything against that. We're waiting town council feedback. And I believe that gets us up to speed other than additional questions and review. And we are waiting for some O'Neill comments of submission on the 3. As soon as that comes in, we'll let you know.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us. Again, Madam Chair, members. I'm Brian Charles, counsel for the applicant. I'm joined tonight by, again, our engineer, James Tatro of Azimuth Land Design, and my colleague, Brian O'Toole. He's applicant's asset manager and has been working on this project to get self-storage at the site. Mr. Ferris wanted to be here, but he had a death in the family. And so unfortunately, he's at the funeral today. So he sent us his regards. Looks forward to seeing you next time. We'd be happy to answer any questions that came up. I agree completely with Karina's update. We did submit a revised site plan last Monday, including photometric and lighting plans and a landscaping plan, which I think addressed the issues that had been raised on October 17th. We also corrected a few typographical matters in Mr. Tatro's sheets of the site plan, like a signature block, that sort of thing. So I think that's all set. And I think that's really it. I had an opportunity to write Karina today with feedback on the draft decision. And then we did sign the extension request that staff had sent us. I know leaving here on October 17th, the thought was we'd talk about the decision and waiver conditions, that sort of thing tonight, and hopefully have action 2 weeks from tonight. And we'd still love that to be the case, but if the board would like more time, to understand.
So do you want to bring us up to date on what's changed on the plan?
Sure. Yeah, just take a minute. In regard to the lighting plan issues, what we did is we had the lighting engineer, we were proposing to do and have him reflect on his plan. That the two light poles here and here to the west side of the existing building be lowered. That's the only way to get that existing light not to splash over just a little bit onto the Eagle leasing property. And we took the three existing light poles, get the right locations, kind of find them inside. So here, here, and here, three of them just south of the existing parking area. We took them off the plan because it's literally the only way where a light is on lot B and not lot A to not have that light similarly put light onto lot B. So we took those off the plan. Again, so those are the lower these, took these off the plan, and the photometric plan reflect that there's no longer any spillover onto the abutting properties. In regard to the landscaping plan, as Mr. Chairman said, there were a couple of instances where I had typos with a key. It still said that a tree was to be removed. It was actually remaining. The species were changed to only use native species. Again, one example which the chair cited was that previously it had called for a couple of instances of Chinese dogwood. Actually went to a different type of dogwood, which is a native. And we also added street tree plantings, specifically in this area, red cedar and dogwood, to try and address the total required for the frontage on Route 9. I guess that's a quick way. One other quick, I should mention is that also for the lighting plan, besides eliminating these three lights, the existing light over here was moved slightly to the north because otherwise there's just no way that it didn't, again, just slightly splash light onto the abutting lot. So that, again, there are really three changes: lights lowered, lights removed, light very slightly moved in order to have the photometric plan complied. And as I say, again, there were species changes, some typos fixed, and additional street trees, especially in this stretch, to comply with the town's requirements for street trees along Route 9. That's largely it. I may be forgetting some small items, but I believe that's the sum.
Okay, very good, thank you. Mr. Mills?
Thanks for the update, much appreciated. Karina, just so I'm clear again, the questions we had for town council were specifically the access and the two lots, right?
5 questions. Would you like me to read the questions?
Sure.
Yeah, it's easier that way. The planning board had 5 questions which they'd like legal opinion response. The proposed self-storage project on the newly created northerly lot has a row of parking spaces that is located beyond the southerly property line of the proposed self-storage facility lot, encroaching onto the newly created southerly lot and also within an area extending into the residential A zone, which the plan calls out as a 30-foot use easement. Is it allowable for the current site plan project to encroach onto another parcel? Question 1. Question 2, does a special permit run with the use of the property and a variance run with the land, so that if the use changes, the special permit with the restrictions for the prior use no longer applies? Number 3, in the 1990 ZBA decision, the 1990 ZBA decision was labeled decision on a petition for a variance. However, the rest of the decision refers to a special permit. Is the 1990 ZBA approval officially a variance or a special permit? Number 4, does the 1990 ZBA special permit with restrictions for the light manufacturing and assembly use granted on the original larger parcel still hold if the use changes? Noting the 1990 ZBA special permit was for the original larger property and the new 2022 ZBA special permit granted is for conversion of vacant building from office use to self-storage use under 174-8.7C9. Note there are several restrictions in the 1990 ZBA special permit. Number 5, in endorsing the May 9th, 2022 A&R, did the planning board negate any conditions of the 1990 ZBA special permit that was in place, if considered still in place based on question 4 above? So a little bit of lengthy questions, so I've probably taken a little long.
No. Okay, all right, so he hasn't responded at
No.
all?
Not yet.
Okay,
I know he's working on So I know other people have gotten some put in before me, so I'm sure it's coming.
It was a win.
And he was up.
Oh,
And to the chair and Mr. Mills, one other item which I recall now that I didn't see that plan, I see a couple of cars shown queued up at a potential gate was one item that the board had asked us to address is, can a car do a 3-point turn in this driveway and get out if somebody comes there and sees that the gate is locked or if they're past hours, whatever the circumstance may be. And we submitted a plan showing from AutoTurn, a car doing a 3-point turn there. Again, it's actually a pretty wide driveway. It's actually 34 feet, 10 feet more than the typical parking lot. And we showed that car can do that. And you can imagine obviously a big enough vehicle that it makes it difficult, but average car or truck can easily do it.
and Karina, the Fuss and O'Neill, when did they get the new plans? Are they behind, or did they get it on
No,
time?
I think that we just got the submission on November 1st.
Okay.
And so that was Tuesday.
Mr. Stein?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for remembering that I'm out here in Zoom land.
I'm shocked myself.
So, the plan indicates on, let's see, what form am I looking at? I guess it's L3. Remaining paved area to be used for outdoor storage in accordance with town regulations. I do remember some discussion at the last meeting about hours of operation, what, specifically was going to be allowed on the site. Just a suggestion that we might want to attach the town regulate, the portion of the code that's relevant. I don't remember seeing before on a plan something just deferring to town regulations. I'm wondering if there's a way we can kind of clarify that, because I know that that's a huge concern for the abutters and the town for that matter. And like Mr. Mills, I also eagerly await town council's review, and I would not probably vote without that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Ms. Willoughby?
Yes, so thank you for addressing the light trespass. It is now obviously in compliance with the photometric plans that we would expect to see with no light trespass. My only concern now is now you're 30 feet by your wall that has no illumination. Obviously, it's an issue for the property owner. But it's in some areas 30 feet, in some areas could look like 45 to 50 feet that has no illumination. So it's just something for you guys to think about. Just removing those poles or just lowering the light on the pole or some other adjustment. It meets my expectations. It's just something for you to think about. The chair of the open space didn't actually respond until Saturday. So I think she expressed some concerns. Ms. Luttrell, will you be addressing some of those? Okay. Around the native species. And I think that maybe your native species list may not be what we're calling a native species list. So there could be some disconnect in how we're defining what a native species is for Massachusetts. I am too in agreement with Mr. Stein's point around the hours of operation and the utilization of the space for this open storage and what does this actually mean? I think that either it's a condition that we include into the draft decision, that there's a condition specific to how they can apply that, or they have to come back for approval to whatever that storage property would be. And then I too eagerly await town council's response to the numerous questions that we had, because I think the A&R just complicated a lot of things. Just puts a lot of questions in my mind. That's all I had.
Like to reiterate, I also have concerns with the outdoor storage. I did go online and tried to find some similar facilities, and I thought that in the original presentation, it sort of intimated that this was very similar to some of the storage facilities in the area, but I guess my ask is if there are similar ones around, the boat, RV parking, or bus parking, or something like that, if you could let me know. I did find some, maybe Quincy, Kingston, and they all have normal business hours, you know, I don't know, 8 to 6, something like that. They have sort of daytime hours, and that appears to be, you know, an exception if someone needs to get in at night. So I'm interested in some more clarification around the hours. And also, I noticed that we don't have a bylaw specific to this, but some towns do have some bylaws specific to outdoor parking of these types of equipment. And they have things, in addition to hours, they have some stipulations like, you know, no compressor trucks can't be running, no on-site amenities, no mechanic, no inspections. You know, all vehicles have to have their wheels in case they need to be turned. Nothing can be stored under them. Nobody can be working on. You wouldn't believe like the number of things that once, you know, towns get involved in this, you know, that there's a lot. Southborough has nothing. So I don't think that's what you're planning to do. But I guess I would just want to be certain that there's not going to be, for example, trucks running overnight. And I think that we have to condition that. That's all.
What's that? So thank you for the natives are better. There were 0 before, now they're 3, but most are still non-native. The Eastern red cedar, that's okay. The Canadian yew is okay, and the sweet pepper bush are okay. The rest are either cultivars or non-natives. So I think at the last meeting, we suggested you look things up on GoBotany because that will tell you what's native or not to the area.
I will relay these comments to the landscape architect who perhaps didn't correctly interpret things.
And just to point out, you're welcome to call me. If there's a particular something, or provide a list ahead of time, and we'll vet it. You know, pick 3 native, straight native species before. Then if we know what they are, we can also confirm it.
Fair enough.
Also, on the landscape plan, there are 3 6-inch maples and a 30-inch oak to remain, but those aren't showing on the existing conditions plan, D1 or S2. It's just inconsistent, and if they're existing, I don't think they would be there.
Looking quickly, I think they may be shown but not labeled.
Let's see.
Now you're right, there's something set right at the Eagle Eastern property line, which is. What's that?
I'm glad there are some additional street trees, but it's 1 tree per 20 linear feet, so it'd be 25 trees. I don't think there are that many, but there are trees that can, you know, existing trees can be used, and there are trees to the west of the front
That's
driveway.
what we were counting between the 2 driveways, existing trees that are at and just off the wetland line as part of that. Maybe we can make that.
Oh, okay, but those should be shown if they're going to count to comply with our landscape requirement. They should be shown on the plan. To the west of the second driveway, there's a 30-inch oak that's called out, but it doesn't say what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, that 30-inch red oak, that's, nothing is to be done.
So it's, well, the others all say to remain, so. So that's to remain?
Yes.
If we could just clarify that. I see you added snow storage, and so except it's behind a 10-foot fence, how does that work?
Actually, the note is behind the 10-foot fence. There's no way, actually, one place on L3, the note is behind the 10-foot fence. If you go to S2, unfortunately, it's very hard to see. It's actually right in front of the 10-foot fence. I think it's what the landscape architect was, why he put the note where he did. It's very hard to discern, so,
Okay, so the storage is up against the fence?
yes.
Can you direct us where that is, James, on this?
Sure,
Kind of
if I,
the hand go left or right?
it's right against the fence here and along here. It's so hard to discern. That's why I think the landscape architect put his note a few feet back, but it does read snow storage. Then right here off the pavement and right here off the pavement.
Are you talking about L2? Or
S2.
L1, S2?
S2.
It says the fence. Oh, there it is. It's hard to read.
Yeah, and again, I think that's why the landscape architect put his note where it is, and though it might seem misleading.
But then on this, it's right.
Here along the edge.
Yeah, yeah. So this was my question.
Yeah.
I just can't read it.
So on L3, it looks like it's on the southern side of the fence.
Yeah, again, it's just a matter of the landscape architect putting the note where it could be more easily read. I apologize.
So where is the snow storage going to be?
Snow storage is going to be on the pavement side of the fence.
So if you go to L2,
So that could just be consistent.
Yep, we just have to have him move his leader out of those.
all right, so this is L2, so this is what you're talking about. I just want to make sure. everything's- Snow storage up here. Right, and then there was snow storage right here. There was snow storage here.
So it looks like it's on the other side of the 10-foot fence, which you can.
It really is on this
The
side.
plow would have to get up a good head of steam.
Well, some do go up and over.
On the west side, I see that you have on L3, there are trees called out to remain. And, there's a 10-foot landscape buffer required there, so if you're going to use the existing trees, you need to know what they are.
Okay. Fair enough.
Oh, I would also add on L3 in the notes on number 10, plant substitutions are not allowed unless approved by the project landscape architect. I would add and town planner. The light poles that were removed on the south portion of the residential lot are still showing up on the E1 and L3 plan.
Well, they should show up on E1, but that's existing conditions, but they should be, you're right, they should be not showing on L3.
So those poles are there now?
Yes.
When the parking spaces are shown at 8.5 by 19, and our bylaw applies 9.5 by 18. And I would request for one of the conditions that the drainage basins be cleaned and brought up to function.
Yeah, so through conservation, I think one of the things that they were concerned with was the capacity of the detention basins because they had been a little bit overgrown.
Yeah.
And that there were some outlets that had.
We've actually already done some maintenance and clean out, I know at least one of the two basins, the outlet pipe was actually at least partially blocked, and they cleaned that out. The applicant intends to file a new notice of intent to do basically that and some other maintenance work at the, obviously, the discretion of the commission.
So I think we'll add a condition speaking to that.
I think it's in the draft decision you
Did I
sent
put it
Friday.
in there already?
Yes.
Just to make sure that.
Do we want to look at the draft decision now, or do we want to wait until we hear from council? Anyone else on the board? Oh, do you need these? Anyone in the public have any comment? Yes,
So
sir.
Eric Laser, 9 Skylar Drive. So question of the snow storage, if they plan to salt the parking lot and accumulate that snow along the residential, is there any potential environmental impact of that concentration of salt and then leaching into the surrounding area, especially the catch basin, which I think is potentially designated as a wetland or could be potentially designated as a wetland? Is there any risk or any assessment of whether or not there could be damage from accumulation of salt or other things that are used to treat the surface for ice?
It's ongoing right now. It has been for literally decades.
But do they salt it now? I mean, there's nobody parking in there right now.
Right now, yeah, correct. Right now, it's not actively sanded and salted
Right.
and only intermittent plowed. But it has been until this recent gap of time where the site has been used. It was absolutely treated just as you suggested.
But it's probably been used for what, at least a decade?
Less.
5 or 6 years, is that the timeframe?
Yes.
Maybe that's a question I can ask Melissa. Having the snow pushed up against that fence. I know other detention basins, they don't have snow.
Can you just- This side, the second sheet. Right there with the detention basin. I just wanted to see something. Okay, so. oops. James, maybe you can give just a quick synopsis of where the drainage goes and flows. And where, you know, that as it relates to the snow storage, so you get a sense of, audience has a sense of where it goes.
Sure. This detention basin, existing detention basin, recedes from basically around the corner of the building, drains to catch basins here, discharges at a flared end section right here, just above that detention basin. And its outlet goes into this wetland, which flows to Route 9. The building, I believe, discharges off just by the wetland. The lower parking area goes to the final wall. 1, 2, 3, 4 catch basins, which discharge through a flared-in section over here to this detention basin, which discharges to the wetland that then, from which runoff then flows under Parkerville Road to another wetland on the other side.
Is there any treatment train included?
There, right now, there's just the catch basin sumps on all these structures. There's not, and there's the detention basin, there are the detention basins themselves. But there's not a vortex unit, contact CDS, et cetera, as such stormwater filter.
Is conservation requiring as part of permitting of them or any information about detention basin, some kind of maintenance program as far as annually or quarterly or some kind of post-construction?
We haven't gotten that far so far. We just filed an ANRAD asking for a confirmation of the wetland boundaries.
Will
If
that
there-
be part of the notice of intent?
Yes. That was actually part of what Melissa's asked for, was an operation and maintenance plan for taking care, because in addition to cleaning them out now, what would be the schedule for maintenance in the future, what would be done, et cetera.
So what I'm getting at is that under the Conservation Commission and notice of intent, they'll be asked to provide an O&M plan, operation and maintenance plan, which will include activities of maintaining those features.
Typically, twice a year, inspection and clean out as necessary. And again, similarly scheduled on existing catch basins. To, I don't know how long it's been since all the sumps of these basins were cleaned out, but probably has been looked at on a semi-annual basis.
So in the draft conditions of the decision, a major site plan, there's one condition I put in about cleaning and maintaining the basins and the outlet structures so that it's ensured that the drainage system functions the way it was originally designed, because that's kind of what you're reusing that system.
Right, right. And as your reviewer, Fuss O'Neill said, you know, we are asking for a waiver not to provide a whole new set of drainage calcs because our position is, look, we're not creating any impervious surface. We're not changing surface. We're using the existing drainage system. And so it is a pretty reasonable thing to say, well, this system has been neglected and show us it's going to be careful. Perfectly sensible.
So my question is, did the Concom consider those resource areas then?
What was the final, I asked Mr. Charho, I forget what because the applicant was represented by Goddard Consulting, the wetland scientists in regard to that, the notice of resource area delineation process. I was not involved in all those meetings.
So the question is if those are considered resource areas, if you can push salt into them.
There's been salt, there's been salt going into them since 1985.
Well, they haven't been plowed. in a while.
Yeah, I think that my point is it hasn't been used for so long and.
It's been,
the
again,
high concentration.
5 or
of
6
pollutant.
years.
What, is there an impact from that?
It's been 5 or 6 years since Kaz was the office tenant and light manufacturing tenant of the building.
Okay, and at that time, they were, I don't think, considered resource areas because they hadn't, I assume they had been maintained at that time.
Right.
When they were occupied.
The
But-
conservation, I'm sorry,
But since they haven't been occupied and haven't been maintained, their trees have grown in them and there were delicate species found in some of them, or eggs, masses. So if it's a resource area, I would think would have different requirements than detention basin.
yeah, the Conservation Commission knows and Melissa knows, we're gonna be filing the NOI to get the detention basins clear and functioning like they were built 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Notice of intent for the basin repair reestablishment of other various set of property.
So they'll have to go before conservation. Yes, sir.
John Palmer, 131 Parkerville. So just looking for clarification with regards to approval of this special permit, it's not going to happen tonight. It'll happen sometime in the future. Will the planning board or will the developers spell out things like hours of operation and utilization restrictions on the outside, the outdoor self-storage, and any parking restrictions as you referenced? Will that be spelled out as part of the approval of the special permit?
The site plan, yes.
Yes. Okay.
In fact, again, as per the chair, there are on page 6 of 7 of the draft decision, there are a suggested set of hours and conditions there. Planning already has tried to begin a discussion of that.
One of the concerns of the neighbors was dealing with the two lots separately because of, it's hard to picture. I'm sorry, Janet May, 21 Skyline Drive. So when we get to the residential part, they would have to have their own separate handling of separate and self. Yes, separate from this plan, snow removal, catch basin, chemical issues. Is that correct?
Yeah, so what's before us now is just the site plan for the storage. What happens with the other lot, I have no idea, but that would be a separate, where all those things would be addressed.
Go through the same process. First, an annual review. We'll get notified.
They can't just tap into existing things without more thorough review.
Anyone else? We have someone in the audience. Could you please lead us over? Hello, Mr. Leeds, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here with my mother, Suzanne Leeds, who lives at 118 Middle Road. I live at 120 Middle Road next to her. And I don't know if this is the right time to ask the question, but she had a concern because she has an artesian well on her land in the back, probably within 75 to 100 feet of the driveway in, and she didn't know if they were aware that there was a well there and if they had thought about any protection if anything was to happen as they're driving in all of these salts into the new place that they're planning on putting everything.
I think you were hearing too early, Mr. Leeds. We're talking about 250 Turnpike, which is on Route 9 in Parkerville. I think 200 Turnpike is what abuts your mother's property.
Okay, so it wasn't a 7 o'clock meeting?
Well, it's 7:10, but we haven't finished with the first one yet. But we'll.
Oh, you haven't finished the first one, okay. Okay. All right, well, I guess I might need to log off, but maybe my mother might come down to
The meeting.
the meeting and ask a question herself then. It'd probably take a while.
The proponents are here, so I can ask that question when that comes up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
She says you could ask.
They said they can ask a question.
I don't have to.
And you don't need to go down.
Good.
So I thought it was very helpful to see the 3-point turn radius presentation, but a question, if you have a larger truck with a trailer, and I assume you could have a truck with a trailer pull into the proposed use model for that area, has there been an assessment of risk around the length of the truck and trailer relative to another party trying to enter in behind them, and whether they would stop on the breakdown lane on Route 9, we open up the exposure to somebody not paying attention to running it. With your plan for that, because we might have 20+ feet of a truck and trailer. Was that assessed at all?
You can come up with any number of scenarios where you have a combination of vehicles that you cannot fit.
I'm just asking if you looked at it. I appreciate.
No, we were asked by the police to create a queuing of 2 cars in front of this. And we were asked by the board to show that vehicles could do a U-turn.
But nothing with like a
Anyone
combination.
can, I
truck and
could
trailer.
easily come up with a scenario where it's the longest possible 18-wheeler and it doesn't fit.
No, but we're not talking 18-wheelers. You might with somebody with a trailer, which is a very, based on your use model, you could very well have a truck and a trailer combination, which is essentially the link 2 cars. Just wanting to do, look at the, yeah, just know that's fine. Just asking the
Yes,
question.
it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess maybe on the traffic concern, will
Can you say your name and
Sorry, yeah, Jeff Boylo, 133 Parkerville. Will there be additional exploration and studies done on traffic safety and risk mitigation? Other than a 3-point turn, U-turn? It seems that it's such a high-speed area, 55 mile zone. Years ago. It's a downhill area. You have cars coming out into high-speed traffic. I guess the question will be, will there be additional exploration studies done on traffic safety and risk mitigation?
Through the chair, as we said in the very first meeting, the actual traffic generation of the self-storage facility is only a fraction of the traffic generation if this was continued as an office use. And for that reason, we do not present a traffic report. And also because we have the deceleration lane. Yes, always do foolish things at the wheel. This is Massachusetts. But the traffic generation of this facility, again, is only, I'll get the numbers wrong, is it a 1/6 of the traffic generation if this were used as an office facility? So we're actually decreasing significantly over what the load on.
Well, I guess that deceleration lane is also a turn lane onto Parkerville. It's not a devoted deceleration lane like Eagle Leasing Mass. So it's a little bit different, kind of blending two lane types.
It's both, correct?
Yeah, it was an office building for many years. So there were a lot more cars entering and exiting at certain times under that use.
Just ask the gentleman with the baseball cap. What was your name?
Eric,
Eric, and what was the address?
Knights Valley Drive.
Okay, sorry. Helps when we do the meeting minutes.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think laser GLA is correct.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, just for a point of clarification, like we said this last time too, right? So we haven't gotten the Russell O'Neill comments back yet. We haven't reviewed all the conditions yet. And typically, we get all the conditions together and then define them in one meeting. And we still haven't heard from town council, so that's why we don't go through the conditions now. We haven't heard from Russell O'Neill yet. Again, another reason not to go through the conditions yet, see what if they have any additional things. So typically we go to the next meeting, assuming everything's clear and ready to go, we do the conditions. And then there's a period of time when we get the conditions out to everyone who's interested. And then at the following meeting, we would vote, provided everything's ready to go. So I'm happy to entertain this and the extension request, but just typically what's happened in the past, it'll probably be another 2 meetings.
Understandable. Yeah. I mean, I'm optimistic, and I hope you are as well, that we'll have town council's feedback in the next 14 days. So you'll feel comfortable on that when we get together on the 21st. And I hope we can talk about conditions then.
Right.
I'm sure there will be Fuss and O'Neill feedback by then. James is gonna change the landscaping plan and clarify snow storage tomorrow morning.
Yep.
So that's not gonna hopefully delay Fuss and O'Neill any further. So we'll clear that part of it.
Yeah, and it's just the conditions, we typically like the public to have a period of time to be able to review them.
Of course.
And it's not like, they feel like we did it in one meeting, put them together. So just trying to set expectations.
Yep.
Also, it would be helpful if the draft conditions I sent you, if you could fill in some of the blanks about the hours of operation.
Yeah.
What you intend to store.
Maybe it didn't make it through, but I had sent you an email about 3 o'clock this afternoon with our feedback on the draft decision, including conditions.
Super, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm trying to make a motion that we,
One thing left, question just from process. So with regard to the snow and then the salt question, would that follow on to the conservation committee as a separate discussion? Is that part of it? Would that be a natural for the process, or what's the next step in regards to a review of conservation at that point? Just curious.
Yeah, that would go under Concom.
Okay, so it would naturally be they would review that as part of the overall of the process, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
I'm trying to make a motion that we accept and approve the request of the applicant to extend the request for continuation extension of the public hearing to November 21st. Sorry, to extend it to December 16th, 2022, as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Second. And 2 seconds.
Do you want to do the seconds? Since I'm on Zoom, that's fine.
I asked her to.
I was finally ready this time.
Any discussion? All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Yes.
Stein, yes.
Leanne, yes.
Mary, yes.
Can I ask, what is the board's next meeting scheduled after November 21st?
December
12th.
We usually, planning board extends the timeframe to add 4 days beyond the case that's going on.
I try to make a motion to continue the public hearings for 250 Turnpike Road, change of use, storage facility, major site plan approval to November 21st, 2022 at 7:05.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Leanne, yes.
Mary, yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good at
Okay, the next item on the agenda is 200 Turnpike Road, major site plan approval and special permit for the
since this is the opening of the public hearing, public hearing notice dated October 19th, 2022. Public hearing notice, major site plan approval and special permit for lower impact development, 200 Turnpike Road, assessors map 28, parcel 3C. For section 17410 of the Southborough zoning code, the planning board of the town of Southborough shall hold a public hearing on Monday, November 7th, 2022, in the McAuliffe Hearing Room, 17 Common Street, Southborough, Mass., and via Zoom to consider the application of CMJ Ventures LLC for major site plan approval at 7:10 p.m. For section 17413.3 of the Southborough zoning code, planning board of the town of Southborough shall hold a public hearing on Monday, November 7th, 2022, in the McAuliffe Hearing Room, 17 Common Street, Southborough, Mass., and via Zoom to consider the application of CMJ Ventures LLC for special permit for lower impact development at 7:10 p.m. These hearings concern a proposed 7,000 square foot addition of garage space and construction of a 4,600 square foot salt shed for a proposed contractor's facility for a landscaping / snow removal business. 3.51 acre parcel is located in the Highway Business Zoning District at 200 Turnpike Road, assessors map 28, parcel 3C. A copy of the plans and application may be viewed on the planning board's webpage, https://www.southboroughtown.com/planning-board, or in person at the Southborough Townhouse during normal business hours. Persons wishing to participate in this meeting can do so in person or via Zoom remote participation by going online to www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. Mimi Russo, Chair, Southborough Planning Board.
Thank you. Good
Okay,
evening,
good
gentlemen.
Peter Bemis, Engineering Design Consultants, and I'm joined to my right with John Crandall. John is the manager of CMJ Ventures LLC, and he's also the principal of JC Grounds Management. That is a snow removal company that is elected to purchase a building in Southborough. I'm very pleased with that, being a business owner in Southborough, to see another one coming here, making an investment. This is a 3.51 acre parcel. It's originally developed in 1984. It consists of a 12,000 square foot building, 2 stories. And the second floor of this building will be maintained as an office. The first floor will be used as a warehouse. There's a 7,000 square foot 1-story addition and a 4,500 square foot salt storage building that's proposed adjacent to that. The cover sheet just outlines all the zoning. So pretty much we are adjacent to Route 9 to our north. To our south is residential land. To our east is the town property. It's all those zoned residential A. It's the town DPW yard. And to the west would be Middle Road. And beyond that would be the Cadillac dealership. This view, probably go to the existing conditions on sheet 2.
Well, before you continue, Peter, I just want to point out that what you're seeing on the screen this evening is a sketch of revised site plans addressing some of the Fuss and O'Neill comments already. This is not submission number 1. This is actually a further rendition. However, Peter wanted to, before he submits a second round of revised one, to get any more questions the planning board may have as well, or the public.
I was going to go to that in the second sheet, so I
Yeah,
was
and
going to explain that.
Yeah, and just also to jump ahead, that this was publicly advertised in the newspaper for 2 weeks, and Mr. Venus also provided mailing receipts and greeting cards as required prior to the public hearing. Make sure I hit everything before you go all the way in. It was submitted to Fuss and O'Neill for review and to the town departments for review. At this time, we are waiting. Did we get the Fuss and O'Neill? Yes, we did receive Fuss and O'Neill review comments of submission number 1, which Peter has addressed in part in his exhibit site plan. Okay, sorry, I just want to make sure it was clear.
When you get to the sheet, it'll be clear why I wanted to use this versus the one we submitted. So but we just shoot back to sheet 2. So yeah, there we go. So again, the orientation, we've got DCR land to our north. It's actually along Route 9. You can see the intersection of Turnpike Road at Middle Road. We have a common driveway that we come through to this property. And in that, we have both a utility and an access easement. It's fairly extensive. It envelopes the driveway coming in, but then it widens out as you come into the driveway at the westerly boundary there. This plan was done by Mark Santora PE Inc. Mark was making the presentations in this project prior to our involvement. We are relying on this existing conditions plan done by Mr. Santora. The wetlands are also shown in this plan. When you go to our plan, we included wetlands that we also had for the adjacent site. The Conservation Commission, where we've also had some permitting involvement already. We included that because we had a record of some historic wetlands on the adjacent property to the west. They're there, and there's a note on them that just references it there for exhibiting purposes for reference, because the Conservation Commission wanted that detail. But this is still our existing conditions plan. So if we can go to the next sheet. Please. And this is illustrating better what you can see here at the existing site. So now I'll just focus on the existing building is the building that is not shaded. That is the two-story, 12,000 square foot building, 6,000 square foot footprint. And the light gray shading is the existing parking lot that surrounds that building. And the parking spaces are somewhat in uniform with what we're proposing. There are parking spaces on the west, on the south. There are parking spaces on the east and on the north. There are no parking spaces right along the immediate building envelope under existing conditions. And we did a separate illustration for that. The use that J.C. Brown's is going to need at this site doesn't require a lot of parking. We actually have provided 21 parking spaces for the office use and 9 parking spaces for the warehouse use, having a total of 30 required. We did provide 40 parking spaces, 2 of which are handicapped. And in this layout, we have full circulation around the building as well. Some prior plans that you had seen had a dead end coming in on the south end of the site. For safety, for just internal circulation, it just makes sense to have a full circulation around the building, allowing all traffic movements to come in and out without being impeded. The existing impervious area represents 21% of this site land area. We will increase it to 53%. So there's a little bit more than doubling of that impervious area. And to offset that, we have a number of things that we're proposing. The existing building and parking lot have no stormwater management at all. So this is basically is a parking lot that runs off in all directions. With the new proposal, we have a collection system. So there are going to be 2 proprietary units that will collect stormwater, pre-treat it. That stormwater then goes into an infiltration system that's shown on the north side of the site. There's also a separate infiltration system for all the building areas, and that's shown in the east section of the site. Those 2 are then linked up, and then those systems will overflow out to a rain garden that's located on the north end of the work limit. The access to that rain garden is along the west side of the site. You come off the parking lot, and you go down along the left side property line, and then we put you into the rain garden for maintenance. There's an operation and maintenance plan to manage the rain garden and to manage the infiltrated drainage systems around the site. The soil absorption system, which is the other hatched area that you can see near the test pits that are on the north side of the building, that has been approved by the Board of Health, and that will support the full use of the facility. All other utilities are maintained as the existing feeds to the building. There are no changes to the power or telecom. The site perimeter is shown with a grading of 2 to 1. This is a fill project. There were a number of test pits done throughout the project to support the soil absorption system on the site, to support the stormwater systems on the site. All the grades that exceed 5 to 1 on the site will be pre-treated with native wildflower mix. So there'll be that benefit to have a low impact area. And there's also planting of 8 shade trees is required for the 40 parking spaces under code, but we're doing a perimeter planting at 40 feet on center. So there'll be 19 native trees that go around the facility. On the south side, we're pretty much maintaining the existing tree line. So there's really no impact there, and all those trees are being maintained. There is a separate sweat plan in the set. Advancing, I'm sorry. The next 2 sheets are just details. I'd be happy to go back to this sheet is the one I want to focus on. So that shows the landscaping. It shows the existing parking layout. It shows the light bases and their details for photometrics. There's a separate sheet. There are also some notes on there relative to. I can't see that.
You need us to zoom in?
No, don't do it. I'll do it. Oh, the lighting control requirements. So I took that right out of the zoning bylaw. So the lighting control requirements were not labeled on the plan, so that's been added. The next sheet, if you will, is the SWAP. So there's a standalone stormwater management plan. This outlines the construction control methodologies during construction and then post-construction for the life of the facility. And the last sheet, which was a sheet that was not in your original set, it was a separate handout. This is a photometric plan. It's probably not illustrating very well here on the screen at the moment, but I do believe when you get the copy, it will be legible. I would ask to just draw attention to one area, if we could, on the south driveway entrance. We do have some spill over there. It is actually located within the easement that we have on the adjacent property. I am using cutoff shields to their maximum extent possible. So it's not, the offending light is not the one on the north side of that driveway. It's the one that's on the south. And you can only cut off so much going from right and left, essentially. I either push that light and it's very close to the other light, so then we have kind of a hot spot of light, if you will, or we just eliminate it. And then I have a dead spot of light at the driveway. It is the entry to our property. If this was the intersection of the adjacent public way, I'd have an even more compelling reason to want to illuminate the intersection of the driveway for the passage through. The adjacent site doesn't have a lot of illumination. It's a commercial site, it's the adjacent site, it's a site that we have an easement through. If you're not inclined to support that condition, then I will probably just eliminate that southwest light fixture. Because all I'm going to do is end up shifting it to the east, and then I'm going to end up being very close to the other ones that are there. Maybe we move them, shuffle them a little bit, but that's what the problem is. You can't cut off going further to the west. I'm sorry, something happened to the screen. Okay, so that's that on the photometrics. So we have addressed Fuss and O'Neill's comments. There is going to be a red line letter that will go out. I just didn't think it was prudent to send it to Fuss yet, not get your feedback at tonight's meeting. The idea was, so let's have the meeting, let's discuss this further and try to capture as many comments as we possibly can so that we can issue it again and get closer to trying to bring this to closure. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There were four waivers or 5 waivers. I don't know how the photometric gets discussed. So I'll call that number 5 if it is a waiver request. It's definitely a site condition. The 4 waivers that we had in our cover letter, the contours that were done by Santora were 1 foot into 2 foot intervals. Was he may have had some spot shots, but our design details are 2 foot contours, spot shots to the 10th on lawn areas or graded areas, and to the 100th in a parking lot. And the 1 foot contours are just going to muddy the plan further. There's a fair amount of grading that has to occur here, and we believe that the 2 foot contours work. I believe you would see that Fuss and O'Neill had a similar assessment of the project, so hopefully you would support that. The maximum groundwater elevations, there were a number of test pits scattered throughout the project. There was sufficient data for the project to rely upon those test pits that were done. With it being a planned fill site, there's not a great deal of cut here. So the impacts to groundwater are fairly nominal. You just need to offset properly for the stormwater systems, which we do. Again, Fuss and O'Neill had a similar comment. Nothing further would be gained by more testing. The LID rules require a water balance calculation for the project. A 3.5 acre site isn't going to change hydrology within Southborough. So we asked to waive that. This site, under existing conditions, has no mitigation whatsoever of stormwater. We have 100% mitigation. We're getting all that stormwater back into the ground, treated before it gets there. So we ask respectfully to waive a water budget. And then the last was existing trees. There are a number of trees that are going to exceed 6-inch caliber on the site. Any work beyond a work limit is not going to be touched. All those trees that are there today, whatever size they are going to be maintained. There may be trees that are larger than 6 inches within our work envelope. I can't change this work envelope to save that tree. So from our perspective, it doesn't really behoove either of us to have to inventory those trees that are 6-inch caliber or more within the work limit, because you can't do this project any other way. So we respectfully ask you as to allow us to waive the additional survey work, but we will have a permanent protection within those trees beyond this work limit. And we can discuss that further if you'd like in the final decision. And also recognize that we also went ahead and provided a greater density of proposed planting, having more than 2 times the planting, so we could achieve a 40-foot on center, so that we would actually see a perimeter of trees bringing the project when we were done. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Rose.
Thanks for the review. And also, I think, thank you too for the withdrawal that you did. Get it up to speed with Mr. Bemis, and then it's a lot that got done, so thank you from that perspective. So my questions, I mean, Fuss and O'Neill going to do their thing, and what's there. I know you had, you were working before with MWRA or MDC.
DCR, yep.
Is that all set?
DCR.
Yeah, I didn't circle back again, so I will for your next meeting. I should have reached out to Freddie
Fred, no, at the DCR.
at DCR, right? It's not Fred, but it's Kelly Frida.
I mean,
Yeah, I will reach out to Kelly. I should have, and that's my fault. I know it was mentioned.
I could share that the structure that's going to hold the salt in the plan hasn't changed. And that was,
If anything, it's better.
If anything, it's better. So I think her original reply was she had supported the project. So I don't see a change, but we'll follow.
We'll circle back.
Circle back.
Because where the brine tanks are now, there's going to be actually a roof over that. Has the ability to have a roof over that. So it's even more protected. It's not just a containment. So it's a much better, more robust system.
And I assume you've worked with the neighbors throughout this too, for the abutters, or there was comments before.
Yeah, so the one that's going to the easement, we've worked with them. The one that called in to the other, I mean, that's first I've heard from her. There is a O&M plan and whatnot, so I've dealt with that kind of scenario in the past. And that it's a similar question that DCR would ask, but I'm happy to, answer it, if Peter could answer it if needed.
Yeah, I have to say, I was not aware that the leads were on a well. I mean, there is town water that goes up there, but not that far. So I'll have to reach out to them and find out where it is. If it's not on the Board of Health records, I will survey it in so we know what it is. It wouldn't change what we're doing on the site and the way we're treating it. That's a salt enclosure that is intended to have, seal that salt within that area. And then the brine tanks are also covered. So we'll give them further assurances. There's not any excessive salt usage on this property. It just happens to be we're storing it, just like the town storing it on their site. Same program.
Are you implying that the planning board will be expecting a review letter from Kelly?
Yes, oh, yes, no, without a doubt, Karina, I'm sorry for that, I didn't follow up.
No, you said you were going to do it during the process,
Right.
once you had the design made up.
Mr. Stein?
I'm gonna wait until later in this process to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess I'm like the lighting expert in the room, so I guess my focus will be on the photometric
Okay.
plan. And so with the new illumination law, right, it's new, and so what is helpful for the calculation, so you're in the LZ3, which is the business highway, industrial and industrial park.
Mhm.
And so you have the 5 lumens per square foot of hardscape. And so so that's a total lumen calculation. I know you've provided the lumens per thing, but just to understand what are the lumens that you're working in for the hardscape, because you said your hardscape is doubling, right? So you're going to like
Right.
51% or something. So I think that calculation of hardscape times the times 5 gives you that total luminaire. And that's an important figure for us as planning board to be able to see that on
Okay.
the
I was
photometric
assured
plan.
that we're well below that because I
It
gave
looks
him
like,
that
just
number.
doing my quick calculations, it looks like you would be, but I think that's helpful for us to be able to say
Okay.
if photometric plan comes in.
Yeah.
My worry is around the like trespass, and I guess I couldn't really understand where it ends, that.
It's just at the driveway itself. And because I can't push the light further south because I've got the property line there. And I can't, so all I can do is I can push it west. And it's that last one. And I only have my small reduced, so I can't tell the numbers. Colleen, if you zoom in, I know it's legible.
Yeah, it's like 0.9, 0.7 overage, so it's a pretty high, 1.2 in some areas.
No, but not the lot line. You're.
Oh, so
yeah,
that's
yeah,
where
go to
I'm
the
trying,
lot,
like,
right.
that's what I couldn't
I
figure out
know,
on this
exactly.
plan.
Do you mind, Colleen, one more, go a little further to the left and then zoom one more time? No, I'm sorry.
Is the
My
blue
left.
line the lot line? Peter, is this the lot line right here?
The blue one, yeah.
This is the lot
Yeah, so
line?
we have nothing happening at the rear. It's as you go west. If you just
Keep
go,
going.
Oh,
keep
so I
going.
can't
Oh, no,
really
not
see
you,
it.
Colleen.
Other way.
Over here.
Yeah.
So I can't even really see it on this plan, to be
Oh,
honest.
I know, I can see it there.
Just-
I'm sorry.
Is it this really light line here? So what is the lot? Is this the one?
No, that's the edge of the pavement.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not real clear on the old plan.
Okay, yeah.
here.
and-
Yeah,
and this-
we'll,
okay.
we'll clarify that further. He makes a PDF of that, and that's the problem.
And then it comes
So-
down, so you're actually in compliance, so it's only in that one
It's
area.
just
and it's
right there,
very-
and it's that one pole that you can see there, A. And I'll talk to him about we shift everything a little bit west, we might be able to get it down. I just wanted to explain, we have this large easement there at our driveway. It's not, we don't owe the fee interest, but we have the right,
Oh, this is this part?
but
No,
it's
it's-
correct, it's right there. So those are zeros.
Yeah.
It's just
Okay.
those couple of them ahead because
It's not
the
a
light-
lot.
it's the shield. And so if you're a lighting expert, then you understand shielding probably better than me. Because it's the
I wouldn't
shield,
call
you know.
myself an expert, I'm an expert on this board.
It's the shield, yeah, the shield can only do so much and still let the light go out.
Exactly,
And that's
yeah.
the problem is, like, if I took that pole and pushed it the other way, then the lights would be going north and south and would be the problem.
And the pole is existing,
No, oh, no. So that's what I'm saying. This is all new.
okay, so
So-
that would
so-
be all new.
So if you folks come back and say, no, you cannot do that, and it'll be our charge to go back and we'll have zero at all the lot lines. I'm fine. The only spot we had overage is here. And so the Fuss and O'Neill letter described that.
And I'm just looking at our, because there is a disclaimer in the illumination bylaw, and I just want to, it says, it has a very clear thing that says, they're unlike trespass.
Well, I was saying, as I said, if this was a driveway at a street,
Yeah, I think that's what it is,
and,
right?
but this is not a street because it's our adjacent site, but it essentially is our street to get to the other because we have an easement through it. And they could very well have their own light pole there. You follow me, but they don't. And that's all I'm saying is that I just don't want to not have enough light where I have a convergence of motor vehicles.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So it says there shall be no light trespass by luminaire beyond the property boundaries of the lot on which it is located, except as within a street right of way for which there shall be no limit. So, but so that's a pub, like it's not defined as such, right? It is a
No, that's
street.
not a street. I'm not suggesting it.
It's not a street, like a,
Like at the ball field lighting
Yeah,
projects.
okay. I mean, it would, I would say we would prefer to have this as no light trespass.
Okay,
to
then
follow.
that's all I need to hear. I'm fine with that. And I'll just move that light further
Figure out
east.
how to do that.
Yeah.
And then to just put those calculations on here, so I know you do that, you pull it out. With the lumens, like the 7,841, you have 2 of those, just do the multiplication. And then we just make sure calculated wise that it is less than the 5 per square feet.
Yeah, it's above my pay grade. I'll make sure it's done. Believe me, I don't want to learn a new task.
And that, from that, the bug ratings, they all seem fine.
Yes.
The shielding, the lights, everything's fine. And this is showing both new and existing light on the premises.
The building lights are, everything's new essentially.
Everything will be.
Yeah, everything's new essentially, the way we're doing this.
Does it include lights on the building?
Excuse me?
Do you have lights proposed on?
Yes, yes, they're identified. Everything's
Yeah,
identified.
they're in there. Okay, so I think that was my only question on that. And then it was just, I think you had asked the question, I had the same questions, Andrew. And otherwise, I'm good with the drafts that you set. So thank you for doing all that work and coming so prepared.
Please do it. I have questions for you. I just want to say thank you. I thought this was very helpful just to hear this update and get prepared. So thank you. I don't have any questions.
So you're using the previous existing conditions plan that Mark Santor did, and you're in agreement with everything?
Yeah, we did some correlation survey work there, yes.
Okay. And I just want to point out, as I did in the previous rendition, that per the building commissioner, there is a special permit required for a non-conforming change for a non-conforming lot, because it doesn't meet the,
And they went to the zoning board of appeals.
for the use, for the construction. They didn't receive the special permit to allow for
Oh,
the frontage.
So we went to meet with Laurie on that, and then she sent an email to the board and to us and said that we did comply.
Oh, so she changed her mind?
I don't think I think she had said it was in, I don't know how to explain it. but-
Yeah, I mean, it's a pre-existing non-conforming property because it doesn't have sufficient frontage. There's
But it's a
enough area.
change.
And there's a change in use, which they secured a permit for. But there's no other physical change to the property other than we're putting an addition on it, or
Right,
not
you're
making a new
expanding.
zone.
You're expanding a non-conforming.
Yeah, but that does, unless I'm tripping something else that is at a higher threshold, I don't believe I need to do that. There are a number of properties in town that they get expanded or get built upon, and they don't go to the zoning board for that. There's actually a building right behind my building getting an addition put on it that didn't go to the zoning board.
She did respond to it, so we can, we can bring it.
I'll get something from Lori on that. Right? There's, I know what you're saying, Mimi, and I know there's instances where you do need to go, but I don't believe this is one of those.
Well, I'm just reading from her letter on May 18th that says a special permit is required for 174-8.5C12, which is what we received, and 174-19 and 174-9E. And those are the changes to a non-conforming.
Okay, all right, if for some reason she overlooked that and we need to do it, I'm not concerned about going to the zoning board for it. I hope that we don't have to, because I would have filed that a long time ago.
Okay,
So we'll see.
I don't want any like last.
No
minute
surprises, yeah,
building
yeah,
permit.
not for you or me. Yeah.
Yeah, alteration or expansion of a non-conforming. So I understand your hesitance to label all the 6-inch caliper.
Yes,
Although you are using some existing trees to satisfy the landscape buffer. But I think those should be called out, so you know what's there.
All right, I'm just holding that tree line, but I don't mind documenting and telling you what's there. Okay, that's fair. That's a fair trade.
Oh, and the parking spaces aren't the compliant size.
That may have been in the original, but not in the follow-up with FUS. In other words, what I just showed you tonight, everything's been labeled and properly documented. If we missed that on the first go around, I apologize. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be in the one here. Yes, I'm not going to disagree with you. If you labeled something inappropriately, then it's been corrected.
Including the diagonal.
Yes, right. The angle 60 degrees. That was the other question that FUS had raised.
And thank you for the rain gardens and all the native plants.
I try. When you can, you try.
Made me very happy. And the minimum tree size per cone is 3-inch.
Or do we do 2.5? We'll fix that.
And if you could put the Latin name on those pinnotes, just so
I
we're
could do
sure
that.
that they're the native species. That's going on there.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll probably get this week, and if you wouldn't mind continuing, I'm not sure if FUS would be able to get the comments back, but even if we got them just before the meeting, we'd have a successful meeting in 2 weeks, but if they don't get the comments back, then I would probably just continue, because there's
2
no,
weeks is very fast.
it's really fast. Yeah, I know. But I said I could probably turn my plans around this week. I just don't know what FUS's schedule is like.
So when will you be getting us a revision number 2?
At the end of business tomorrow.
Is there anybody in the public that has a comment on this plan? Anybody in Zoom land? Just raise your hand.
There's currently 8 attendees. No hands raised.
And just for the, I will reach out to Mrs. Leeds.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we continue the public hearings to 200 Turnpike Road, snow removal landscaping contractor facility for major site plan approval and for a special permit for LID to November 21st, 2022 at 7:10 p.m.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
And yes.
Mary, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
much.
The next item on the agenda is discussion of 325 Turnpike Road, status of drainage and landscape repairs, continuation of a discussion at the last meeting. Yes.
So it appears Attorney Bill Pizzoni representing Ken's Foods at 325 Turnpike is in the Zoom attendees room. And we've elevated to panels. And Scott Doty as well.
Hi, this is Scott Doty. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Scott. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Karina, you want to just bring us up to date and then we'll.
Brought my book.
Oh, yes, Mr. Moria is recusing herself from this discussion.
Bill, do you want Sam Dettori elevated?
Yes, please.
Okay, just to get you up to speed, at the last discussion regarding the Ken's Foods request to be allowed to start construction on the building expansion. They were asked to, in the conditions of approval for the major site plan and bid for the expansion of the building, there were conditions that required that there be 3 drainage repair fixes from the old site plan that was approved. In addition, there were 3 landscaping items that were also had to be remedied and repaired from the prior work. 2 of the 3 drainage repairs were completed. As-built were provided. Fussin O'Neill did inspections in the field during construction. Drainage the 2 drainage adjustments to the outlet control structures were completed and satisfactory to Fussin O'Neill. The one that wasn't performed yet was because it was near a national grid utility pole, and the proponents having difficulty getting them scheduled to assist with that excavation to do that repair of the gravity line that was put in over the gas line there. So one of the things around, so we're working on that, and in lieu of that, there were 4 or 5 items that they wanted to start building at the building expansion. But the planning board required that they provide the as-built for the 2 drainage fixes and also do those landscape repairs prior to this meeting. And we did receive as-built for the landscaping fixes as well. And I spoke with Melissa Danza, conservation agent, because those were primarily in the conservation permits, even though we reiterated them in our planning board permits. And she indicated that she was all set with those as pertaining to the conservation permits. So generally, all around, I think we satisfied the conditions to have a leniency on that 3rd drainage repair. And I just want to point out that the building expansion work that would be allowed would be the water fire line around the expansion area, the fire access roadway around the expansion area, the rammed aggregate piers that support the foundation, and the 4-foot foundation for the building expansion. Those were the 5 items that were expressed they wanted to proceed with until hopefully they get their steel delivered in February of 2023. However, just to point out that at the last meeting, it was also pointed out that if your steel shows up and you're ready to move further, that there's no further work at this point based on this decision on the expansion until that 3rd drainage fix is completed and an as-built is provided and Fussin O'Neill in essence signs off on it. That's where we are. So it's, you know, they have submitted what they were required to show that they have met the obligation on their part to move with that building expansion, that limited expansion.
Very good. Thank you.
Rita, if I may, Madam Chair. Yeah, I believe that's accurate. I believe those are the items, Sam, that you want to be able to work on through the winter. And I'll let you speak to them relative to your meeting with Eversource out at the site and what that looks like. And we do understand that we don't be able to do the work that's authorized tonight under tonight's vote, if you vote to allow us to do it. And if we were going to do anything further, we'd have to come back to you unless we complete the last drainage structure and get a sign off from Fussin O'Neill. Yes, good evening, everyone. We did receive positive news. Eversource was out to the site a week ago today. They viewed the area where we would want to relocate the gas line, actually raise it slightly. We need about 8 or 9 inches to allow the pipe that goes into the for drainage at the proper pitch that meets all the calculations. And it's a much easier install if they just adjust the gas line for us. So they have agreed that they can do that. There obviously, as always, there will be a cost, which we will pay. And they said that they would put us
on a schedule that will get us done in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And we have agreed to, if they need us to, we have agreed to provide excavation as needed to expose enough of the gas line for them to then, they'll cut it. We'll have an outage out at Ken's for a period of time. They'll cut the pipe. We'll run our new pipe at the proper elevation. We'll confirm that as built it. Then they'll reinstall the gas line and we'll be all set. Probably would be a good idea because of how the operational work. Will request that in advance that Fuss and O'Neill come out and view it because time will be of the essence and we'll want to be able to get everything into the ground, confirm that it's at the right elevation and location, and then reinstall the gas line and then cover everything up.
So you'll give me advance notice so we can get Fuss and O'Neill on it.
Absolutely, Karina.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mills.
No questions.
Mr. Stein?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
I was just gonna say congratulations on getting Eversource out there in 6 to 8 weeks. Hey, you've light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Have you started work out there already?
We received permission from Melissa to install erosion control only. That's it.
Some big machinery over there. And it was hard.
Yeah,
to
and
see.
Melissa has been out to inspect it,
I
and
was
in fact,
going,
Melissa worked with us to inspect all the plantings we did. Mark Goddard was out there, our wetlands consultant. Scott's been out there. We're 100% sure everything is where it's supposed to be, and we're just waiting to go on to the next step.
Very good. Thank you. And when do you, Bill and Scott, when do you do back for the walk?
What are we asking? That would be allowed.
Yeah.
Oh, the wall. The wall has, I guess that's in Scott's purview right now. They identified where the posts were going to go, I believe, so that we can now lay out the plan on the wall, and we should get it in. Scott, I'll ask you.
Sure.
We're going to get in next week.
No, we're collecting more information. Sam actually has some subsurface information he's gathering for the wall vendor, so we can confirm the design and size of those piers. We just want to confirm that the sizing so that we can get the best location in terms of distance from the edge of pavement. I do have a plan I could show what we're talking about. It's consistent with the last plans that Bill has shown everyone.
No, that's good. I just wanted to make sure we're
Okay.
continuing forward there.
Nope, it's moving ahead. Won't be this coming week, but it's moving ahead.
I believe we have a deadline of, what is it, the 21st is a Monday, to get that plan into you and file for our permit at that point. And Scott, I'm assuming that looks fine, the timing wise?
Yes.
I think that's our next meeting. All right, do you have a motion?
Just a discussion.
We wouldn't make the next meeting. We just have to submit by then.
Right.
I would assume we'd be on the meeting following that.
No, we have to be publicly advertised. So once you submit, it's a public hearing because it's a modification to major site plan. So just realize if that is the case, I mean, it is the case. It's a modification to major site plan. So you'll need to make sure you have an updated certified abutters list for planning. You'll be required to notify abutters. We have to put it in the paper, which you'll be responsible to pay for. It'll be in 2 consecutive Mondays, and then the third Monday will be the public hearing opening. So, Bill, Yeah, so it depends on what they get it in. So I had a deadline that you needed to submit the modification prior to October 18th, because that's 30 days.
No, we asked for 30 days on the 18th. We asked for 30 days at the last meeting, which, because it was going to run out a day before. And that's just to submit the plan and everything. It's not to have the hearing.
So your understanding of the deadline is November 20th? To submit the-
Yeah, but I think that's Sunday. I think that's Sunday, isn't it?
Oh, just for the record, the modification based on the 30-day extension is to be submitted by November 21st.
Right, that's
Have a problem with
right.
that.
We need to submit by that date, right?
Yeah, submit the application. And then,
Right, so we'll anticipate that we'd be on your next hearing after that, because you'll have 2 weeks to publish and everything.
well, the process is that I'll have to review the application to make sure it's complete, which we have 3
Yeah.
days. So we have to just track it forward from there. So if it's not December 12th, then it would be January 7th.
Karina, I'm gonna push Scott here if possible. If we can get it to you that week before that, so that you can review it, we'll try to do that. That way you'll have time. But it's gonna depend on when we get all this further information back.
All right, so it definitely won't make the 21st.
No,
And
no, didn't
December 12th
anticipate that.
Following meeting. So in order to make the 12th, it would have to be 5th of December. And then that's Christmas, which is 2 days off that week. So it's either, we'll try for December 12th. We'll do our best to get it in, but just so that you know, the next meeting is January 9th. All right, well,
Okay.
obviously, you know, we're gonna try. We'll try to expedite as fast as we can. But that's the case.
Okay, I know I won't be able to appear in person on January 7th, because I'm having my knee replaced. I'm having my knee replaced.
So give us a second, Phil. Well, you can do a Mullins form.
No, but if you need to vote on site, I will.
No,
That's not.
no, because you need.
I'll be on the beach.
Jesse, you gonna be around on January 9th?
I'll check. 1 sec, please.
So Bill also has a conflict.
Well, I'll be able to be on a Zoom. I'm just having my knee replaced the 28th of December. So I won't be mobile enough to get in there.
I can make a meeting on January 9th. Thank you.
Thanks.
So for this discussion purposes, do we just need to confirm that what was asked to be complete has?
That the condition for the third drainage fix has been extended until such time the drainage is fixed. And that, you know, no further work on the expansion is allowed until that third drainage fix. But they can do the limited work that was described. And that work is,
And so Boston O'Neill signed off on the first 2 drainage. And
correct.
the landscaping, we got the as-built and Melissa confirmed that,
Yes.
that she was on.
She was
site.
satisfied with
Yeah.
that as well, which would allow the building inspection work to take place. That would include the water fire line around the expansion, the fire access road, the rammed aggregate piers that support the foundation and the 4-foot foundation of the building. So those items explicitly.
So we're all in agreement with that. Are you in agreement with that, Jesse? Okay, very good.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, so they're good to go. They can start their,
Yeah.
you can start your limited building expansion work on those items that were discussed.
Okay, thank you, Corinne.
Okay, well-
Thank you, board.
And we'll get to everything we can as soon as we can.
Yep, and we'll work on it. As soon as you get it in, we'll try to expedite it, knowing the timeframe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I will get a letter out confirming today's agreement.
Great.
Great.
That'd be
Thank you,
great.
Karina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Have a good night.
You too. And the next item on the agenda is a discussion item 40 to 42 Central Street. And I understand the proponent that wanted this on the agenda is unable to make it tonight, so we will not have that discussion.
Shall we put it on the November 21st planning board meeting?
I would
Wait
ask
to,
the proponent to send in writing the date. and when they want to. If
What
they need
meeting? Not that they- What meeting they can attend?
to. Yeah, yeah. Because they did ask that it be put on the agenda. And we did. And the next item on the agenda is a discussion of MBTA communities. I thought it was a joint meeting with Shopsy, but Shopsy. It's not going to be a joint meeting.
no, the agenda didn't get posted
We don't have.
for
we don't have
email
a quorum.
error.
We're
There
good.
was some email trouble, so Dorian Jasinski's here as chair of shops, and their consultant Sarah Hecker, former business admin to planning.
All the way from
We're happy to
Beckett.
see you.
All the way from Beckett.
And there may be members of Shopsy in the Zoom attendee room, and
I don't think there's, I think Alex is on.
Oh, good. Alex is on, John
Great.
should be on.
I just see Alex.
Yeah, Tom is not able to make it. Jesse should be there with you.
Jesse, what's a quorum for Shopsy?
4.
4. So you have 3, so it should be.
Yep, I should be good.
Oh, Alex is coming back. Alex is coming. Very good. Welcome, Alex. So just to begin the discussion, as of July 2021, Section 3A was added to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, which required all MBTA communities, which Southborough is one, we have a commuter rail station, to set aside a zone that allows multifamily housing by right, or become ineligible for a host of grants. Since that time, revisions have been made to the compliance guidelines that allow for an affordability requirement and also relax the location of the district. The planning board, as the committee charged with the creation of affordable housing, and the planning board, which is one of the entities that can set forth zoning, are starting a discussion on how the town can come into compliance with this district. The first step is to produce a plan which needs to be in to DCHD by January 31st, 2023. An action plan.
And we just sent an application for a grant. Is that correct? For
Yes.
technical assistance to help us?
11-4, we sent it in, it was the technical assistance, 318.
Right, but that's to give us technical assistance in order to work on this whole transition and zoning and, okay, I just want to make sure that we're good on that.
And that's technical assistance from DCHD.
Yes, and the way it was described to me when I read on MMA was they've given out the monies, and it's at places like the retail planners and there's some other groups that, like maybe a VHB or something that does help too. It's gonna be a lot for everybody. It's gonna need to, but we are technically compliant right now.
So they allocated, so the DHCD allocated money through the program to various agencies, like
Yes.
Mass Housing,
That's why we did the TA was
Complete Street,
MHC, right?
and such. And you applied for not services, but for funding to hire a consultant.
That's the way it was written, yes.
Yeah, that's the case. So in looking at the application that Colleen submitted, and it's great because Colleen's taking the initiative of trying to find some help on this, because it's a big task. And there are avenues to get help, but in the application, Colleen actually asked for everything she's asked.
We could possibly get
Yeah, so,
all of the above.
Yeah.
Yes.
so
Plus.
you really
Right.
understand that. So one of the companies that we reached out to get an idea.
Yeah, so there's a little more going on than just the zoning and BPA communities. So we're kind of working with IT and the assessment's office as well, looking for a new map person.
Oh,
That's been an issue.
GIS.
Yep.
Yes, yes.
That
So
makes sense.
that's what we're gonna need to do, a lot of the mapping and whatnot with this
Yep.
district. So, so Sandtech is one we're getting a quote from. We'll have a meeting tomorrow morning with IT and Paul Sabella and DPW to find out what everybody needs from this. So that we can kind of get together what we're asking for.
Yes, zoning map update that's coming. There is the GIS that mapping that continuously has to get updated at the assessors. Then there is
And then we have the zoning. the
programs. Yeah.
Updated, yeah, so it's amazing how many you use the maps. So you know, figure out, and there's funding a little bit everywhere. That's-
But as far as MBTA communities, if there's any other information that anybody has on potential funding and stuff like that, send us an email and we'll look into it and see if we can get some additional funding. But we'll wait to see what the 3ATA people give back from Mass Housing. That way we can get started. And in the meantime, Colleen's going to continue to find out what this action plan requires.
right, so we have to meet that January 31st deadline though. So are we well on our way to gathering everything that we need to do to comply for that date?
No, we're starting it now.
Here's step one.
Okay,
We're starting.
I think this is
So the deadline
good
for
stuff.
the technical assistant grants was, will be November 10th.
Yeah.
So
okay, when do we hear?
I'm assuming pretty quickly, because we do have a deadline.
And what do we have to, what steps do we have to have done and completed to meet that January 31st deadline? Like where do we have to
Do you
be?
know the action plan?
Yes, I think we will send in, basically, you know, what we're gonna study, when we're gonna meet,
Yep.
how we're gonna reach out to the community.
Okay.
And then,
Timeline.
you know, it's a bunch, I don't have it in front of me,
Okay,
but It's a
but you
bunch of
have
things
an
like that.
idea
It's
of
the
what-
action, when we're gonna get things done. And in this last grant application that I put in for, we did say that we wanted to, the goal was to present for zoning change the spring annual town meeting of March 24.
Okay, yeah.
That will be the next, after the action plan, that's our next step.
So Mimi, what I think I would like to
That's a
see.
little aggressive.
So that's the 24.
Deadline.
24, yeah, a
Yeah,
year.
because the deadline to be compliant is the end of 2024.
Yeah,
Just more of a draconian question is why do we have to comply?
Well, it was, we thought it was.
we lose a lot of grants if we don't.
So, and how many grants have we
One
done?
stop
Have we
is-
done that?
The
Like
one-stop grant is
evaluation?
one of them.
Well, you know, when they redid the debt, you know, everybody complained and we all sent in the letters saying that we don't know what this is, and we don't comply. In doing that, they've also made this mandatory. So it's just, we have to do it.
But they, well, mandatory, that we
If
won't
you
get
want a
grants.
grant.
If you want a grant,
I guess my
right.
question is, have we done a return on investment?
So,
A risk assessment to
Sure.
say, what if we lose the grants?
I mean, Southborough was a recipient of a one-stop grant.
And what was that? How much?
That was,
I think it was 40,000.
yes.
Yeah,
I think so,
EDC
got it. Through EDC, you know, and again, not like a
It's not
substantial,
significant amount, right? Like,
substantial
I mean,
amount of
it is,
funding,
but-
you know. But I do think with the new requirements, there, it's a little bit easier at least to attain, right? Because at first there was this, you know, threshold for this community to have, you know, 750 units, 50 acres within that half mile, which is insane. So now that has
Not
dialed back to 20% of that within the half mile. So 10 acres. And the final rule says that you do not have to take into consideration whether or not the ground can actually sustain the development, right? Which is interesting because, you know, if it can't, then why are we doing it? So, I mean, it seems to me as though it is more of an exercise in planning and compliance than it is going to necessarily generate the amount of units that they're actually looking for.
Right, and they continuously emphasize it's for, you know, it's not requiring to be built, but
Yes,
so
it is a zoning
able to be
exercise.
built.
And so the It is a clause zoning about. exercise. Right, exactly. And so, and
Yeah, it's a, I don't know, okay, we're telling you what to do, you have to do this, and if you don't comply, we'll slap your wrist, we'll take away grants, but how many of those grants that they're taking away do we actually utilize? So I know the one stop. So I guess Marnie's point is, okay, if we lose a $40,000 grant, how much is it gonna cost the taxpayers to comply and get all this other stuff done? And what's the return on investment? If we lose 40, but it costs us 100,
right.
I'll tell you what, I'll lose, I'd rather lose the grants and leave the town the way it is.
So originally, I was of that mindset, the original plan that 50 acres.
Right,
within
it
a
was
half
crazy,
mile.
right?
In that area of town was where the more affordable housing is.
Yeah.
There's no affordable requirement in this law, even though all the verbiage you read talked about affordability.
Right.
Which I know that it's a misnomer that density equals affordability. Just
Sure.
look at the Seaport District.
Yep.
But now we have the guidelines, it's 20%.
Yes.
And so it's only 10 acres that need to
Right.
be within that half mile.
Right.
And then the rest can be somewhere else.
Yep.
And I know there are some lots off of Route 9 that don't abut any neighborhoods that could do the other 40 acres.
I do agree with that assessment.
So I think it's more doable. And I know that the master plan, one of the master plan goals in the housing production plan is diversity of housing. And this would, multifamily housing would be more diversity. Well, not really.
It's really, really don't.
Well, we have the downtown now, the little bed. There is, but the senior housing, which I hate that, with 55, which are children as far as.
That's right.
I concur.
But you're right, we really,
It's a multi-family housing by right. So
oh,
you
we definitely don't, except for the downtown. We do
Right.
19.
You can't have age limits on it. You can't be. Yeah, you
can't have age limits
You can't
on it.
have an
There's
age
no
limit on
limitation.
this housing at all. You have to allow children, so
So
it's not senior housing.
But you can have 10% affordability, which
Yeah.
wasn't there before, so that's.
Right. No, that's good.
To 80% too, that you.
Yep.
It's just a 60, of course, but.
Of course.
Nobody wants to do that. So the first line in the MBTA communities on mass.gov says this new law requires that any MBTA community shall have at least one zoning district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right and meets other criteria that set forth in this statute. So it's minimum gross density of 15 units per acre, located not more than 0.5 miles from the commuter rail station, subway station, ferry terminal, bus station, if applicable. No age restrictions and suitable for families with children. That's the chart, basically.
In other words, Southborough has to have 751 units of new housing. That's 750, 750 or 751? Okay, I stand corrected.
She's an overachiever.
50
One
acres,
extra.
750.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
You know, the one,
Zone 4.
the,
And again,
well,
you're
that's
looking
the
up-
thing, is zone 4, I think is a very loud statement that's said quietly in this legislation, because when you dig into the revised guidelines, they just revised them October 21st, you know, so just a little while ago. You know, a couple weeks ago, right? It says that the limits on unit size or number of bedrooms that are required by the state are not relevant to section through A. So like you would think they would be relevant because you're trying to create this, you know, new housing, but they're not. So.
and there's no affordability piece in that, right?
There is.
So there is now, they added it? Okay.
Just added it.
Just added it.
In my mind, the way I look at it, from what's happened over the years is the Governor Baker has been pushing for multifamily housing for a long time. And it's just not. So this is his way, he's on his way out. So this is his way of leaving it for us to do. Housing prices.
Sure. So is this a planning board shop C discussion, or is this a question at town meeting where we say, here's the cost to invest in making this decision moving forward? Does the town want to support the investment to make this zoning and move forward?
Well, I think the zoning would go for.
Right, I'm just saying before we even invest, and I know we need an action plan by January 31st, but I'm not necessarily supporting this.
Well, this is
So-
saying, like I said before, it says, NDT.
To get the grants, it's to the grants.
What grants
Yeah.
are we
No,
losing?
the grants are there to help us do this, but they're not giving us a grant because we're an MBTA community.
No, we don't,
No, but if you don't-
Yeah.
If you don't choose to become an MBTA community, you don't get access to grants.
But that's
That's
not
it.
what it says anymore. That was in the first.
But what's
rendition.
shall mean? What are they gonna do? Close down the town?
No, I don't know that. I have no idea.
So I
I
think
still
the
think the
shall is
only
that you
recourse
lose the
is removal of the grants.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Do we, but do we know, do we have a listing of what grants would be impacted? That we stand to lose? Do we know what those grants are?
No,
One stop.
One stop, but was there one more Mass Works, which is that one, I
We
think?
have, I don't believe we utilized that.
No,
I don't think we
okay.
have used that one.
I thought it was tied to infrastructure.
Yeah.
Jesse.
Hi, thank you. So if I could just address Marnie for a moment. What we're only talking about, the point of this meeting is just to achieve interim compliance. Obviously, the adoption of a zoning change would be a town meeting. We're really only talking about completing a form. And I'm looking at the Dropbox, Karina, I don't see the form that DHCD has provided.
No, that we already did, I think, Jesse. So initially, we had to have an interim compliance back in, by May 5th, between March and May 5th.
Well, hang on though, Karina. It says in the guidelines that for a commuter rail community, it's January 31st, 2023.
Plan, yeah.
For the plan.
For an action plan, that's step 2.
Okay.
He's talking about like the full-fledged compliance.
Yeah.
It says an MBTA community seeking to achieve interim compliance, which is what we're doing right now, must first submit an action plan on a form to be provided by DHCD.
Right, and it's on the, I believe it's on the website.
Well, wouldn't the point of this discussion just to be to move this forward in the aim of completing that form?
The interim compliance will be sent in April. And this next due date is for an action plan at the end of January.
But excuse me a second, Colleen. the action plan is a form to be provided by DHCD.
Yes.
Where is that?
That's what I'm asking.
Where's that form?
It was my understanding that the action plan is like a 3-component piece. There's a map, there's
I can tell you.
some querying of parcels, and there's a third component.
There we go. There's it right there. She found it.
Okay, I can't see that, but
Colleen,
I,
can you
I,
email
I would
that?
just recommend that we, this form be like included in the Dropbox.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Excuse me, going forward, and that way we can, at a subsequent discussion, take, recommend the next steps of the process. But Marty, we're definitely not,
It is, but there's also the one where you submit, so it is an online form.
Got it. So is that it? You just check stuff off?
Well, no, because then in it, I've already looked this over, so here's your, there's other things they ask, so you have to have a map showing where the boundaries are gonna be, showing, so there's different things that you have to layer with this.
And that's due on January 31st
yeah.
to actually map out and
Yeah.
designate a district area
Well, I think the preliminary district.
without.
It's a plan,
So,
like show
excuse me.
where are.
you
districts
guys
are.
might be confusing the request for district compliance. The deadline for district compliance, which is a separate application, is next year, January 31st, 2024. And well, at least that's my interpretation of the guidelines. Maybe we might want to arrange some kind of contact with DHCD then for clarification.
There's questions like this, Jesse. Please briefly describe other members of the core team developing the multifamily zoning district. Well, municipal staff, board members, regional planning agencies, private consultants. Then there's a housing overview. Please briefly describe any relevant strategies, goals, or objectives and the work that has been done to date. Oh, I was just gonna say nothing because we haven't done any of that work today, but that's gonna be part of our action plan. Hopefully we can.
Well, some of the
It's
work that
better.
has taken place is that we met, the select board discussed this, and there was a meeting
Yep.
required as part of the interim compliance select board meeting. And then the next step is to start preparing a map, et cetera. And I think some of those documents can be, you can get assistance from NHPC as well. They have online formulas and such that we can start working on and looking at. But the gist of it is that there's a lot of information that has to be put together to come up with an ultimate zone or zoning areas that will meet this requirement. And as Marty said, I think we need to confirm if this is mandatory or not, number one. And maybe it's in town council's advisory, I'll have to review that. But initially, when this came out, during all these webinars, it was, well, if you don't comply, you don't get these grants. If you don't comply, you don't get these grants. And they listed going to a webinar tomorrow. Yeah, there's several this week. And then when the new guidance came out after the comments, the DHCD representative started saying, this is a mandate, this is a mandate. And so a mandate, I'm not sure. I'm not sure at this point. So we can ask town council as well.
Well, I'm not town council, but it would seem that it's a state law.
Yeah, but it just shifted like that. So like.
But we're a home rule state. I don't know how the state can tell us what to do with zoning in our town.
Do we have a project manager assigned to this? Like Colleen, are you manning this? Like who is like the coordinator, the quarterback for this program?
So far, I've only been the one.
And so is that something maybe we should agree to tonight? Like maybe you're the quarterback and let's just, I'll work with you and figure out like what that is. When I look at, I'm online looking, Googling, and it just says the interim compliance action plan to remain eligible for the calendar year 2023 round of Mass
Right.
Works housing grants, housing choice grants, as well as local capital projects fund. An MBT community must submit an action plan no later than January 31st, 2023. So I think that's kind of up in the air, but I think if that's what you want to do and it's an action plan and you can say, this is what we're doing, but I think you're comfortable assigning a project manager to this and just letting you update us. I'm fine with that. I don't want to necessarily put a lot of resources. You're a lot of resource and you do other things. And I think there is a, there's a risk benefit, and I understand what you're saying, Jesse, is let's just fill this out to stay in compliance until we can figure out if we can actually achieve whatever the status is that we're trying to do. That would be my recommendation.
Sounds like a good recommendation.
And we have some preliminary mapping that you had done. We have some preliminary mapping of the MBTA area, and Sarah had mapped it out all out, the whole section. On the other side of the train track is Hopkinton though, so,
And a forest.
but we've got it all mapped, we have it in our minutes, it's all mapped out. We have a preliminary map, so could we hand that in and use that and then change it later? I mean, or is this is the
But that's
definitive
the
thing
whole 50
without meeting with the
acres
ZBA?
within a
That is the
half
whole 50.
You can't do that.
mile.
I don't know.
You
I'm
know.
not in favor of that at all.
Right.
Right,
So, but those can be, I think those were created, fairly quickly. So if you need any
Because it's
support
scary
with
back
that,
then.
you know what I mean? Right.
Jumping on things.
I'm happy to help redraft those,
I think we should probably bring the ZBA in on this and have them, because I think they need to take a look at what we're,
CBN.
the zoning, or can you do the zoning on that district? Can the planning board do the?
Zoning doesn't do zoning.
Oh, okay. All right, well, that's why they're called zoning, so I thought they
It's a
did.
zoning board of appeals.
Oh, okay, now I stand corrected on that too, huh?
So
Corrected
to
twice
take
tonight.
Marty's point,
All right, so then we don't have
because
to
this
do
has
that.
been kind of up in the air and back and forth, and what do we do, where do we go, and what's it cost and all that. Inside the planning office, we decided that Colleen would take the initiative to start looking, because she took on looking for grants and applications in order to find out, and reaching out to consultants to find out, can you give us a proposal to meet this requirement? And Stantec actually provided a proposal with pretty decent number to take on the role of meeting.
Yeah. GIS updates and things like that.
So we're kind of quasi in this research of what do we need to do with it. For the first step was very easy. The interim compliance form was relatively straightforward, and Colleen prepared that and provided that to the town administrator who submitted it. And we're all set with that. So this next step is a little bit more hairy because we're not really quite sure what it involves. We listen to seminars, but we don't always have a clear time to just sit there and listen to it.
So these updated compliance regulations came out on October 21st,
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah, right.
And by January 31st, we have to have.
Quick turnaround.
So Mimi,
Right?
I just asked Sarah to send you guys the maps that she had done for Shopsy several months ago. Just,
So I think
it was
that-
just a preliminary thing when this first came out at us, when they kept adding to that bill and adding, we took a look at it. And unfortunately, the Southview School was 1/10 of a mile outside of that district.
Well, I would fight that.
Yeah.
To turn
Well,
that
we had
into-
planned on it, yes, we thought that was a little ridiculous, but it is 0.1.
No, I mean to turn that historic building into.
No, I'm not saying to
15
turn it
units.
into it, I'm saying adding that area into the district, you don't have to develop it. I'm saying just adding it as part of that district, because they said half a mile, right, and it was just outside of it. It doesn't seem to develop it, it just has to, you have to make a district.
I understand that, but if you're dangling a 15 units per acre carrot out there, by right, and the town wants to get rid of every town building that.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I agree with you. I'm not in favor of you. I'm just saying you have to make a district. And it has to be within a half mile of that MBTA community.
Only
And now
20%
it's 10
now.
acres instead of 50.
Yeah,
Which is good.
that's only the 20. And you saw it the same place I did. They have the list of exactly what we're supposed to, they've done the
Yes.
calculations for us.
Yep, so,
And they have
Yeah,
some-
so based on,
Yes, exactly.
yeah, because based
So
on
I think
the,
the first thing to do is find out what we've gotten from these grants.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
step one.
and do we think we're gonna apply for any of the grants in 2023, because that's all it says, right? It says to
Well,
be
the
eligible for 2023. Are we gonna apply for any of those?
Yeah, so.
Yeah,
if
the
we don't-
answer is
So
no.
if we don't,
I did
miss-
already.
if we miss
Oh,
the,
you already did them. How
if
much
we
we
miss
getting?
the one,
I don't know, we just applied. It's the deadline is November 10th.
oh, but that was for.
No, that's
for
not one of the other
technical
grants. That's a
assistance.
different, that's a
not
different
Oh,
grant.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's an
That's just
MBTA
the other-
one.
okay,
No.
I'm sorry.
You're
So
talking
if you
about the
don't
one
meet that
stop
deadline,
and,
you can-
and the
You're
mass
saying we're
work.
very sick and we have no volunteers.
Well, if you don't meet the deadline and you pass in late, you're not eligible in 23, but we're pre-eligible in 24.
Good.
Right.
We don't think we're gonna take any of those grants in 2023. Never used them or anything, then why don't we just? I think
Here we
I'm
go.
in line with you, Marty.
So,
Take it to town meeting, like, do we ever want to go for any of these things, and is it worth it?
Well, EDC went for the one stop, got $40,000. I don't even know if they've used any of it. You have to ask them, but I'm not sure that the application has come up again and whether or not they have applied already for 2023. I don't know that information, so.
so the
They
DHCD,
complete streets for the trial.
yeah, the DHCD, back in February of this year, put out a little spreadsheet of the local communities here, Ashland, Framingham, Holliston, Malvern, Southborough, Wayland, and it categorizes what type of work, commuter rail, housing units 3,763, capacity 750. Are we housing choice community? No. And where it said housing choice grants of fiscal year 19 to 22, we had none. Mass Works grants from 2015 to 21, there was none listed here, and total grant dollars received was none. But it didn't include one
There you go.
step, one stop. Because I think that was right at the time when the town got that $40,000.
Right.
So there weren't, and I believe I had talked to Karen, I could be wrong, that we hadn't used any Mass Work grants. So the other thing is in the guidance documents that I think you just read that where it says that you won't get grant funding.
For 2023.
Yeah, it's in that, it's
If
in,
you miss the plan.
Correct.
yeah,
We bypassed 2023.
yeah. In deeper into those guidance documents, I was reading the same thing just now, where it does say you don't get grants.
I guess, what,
2023.
what are we hoping for tonight?
I think that,
It was an update, really.
Well, so to start the conversation, and I think if the board is okay, I'll work with Pauline and then maybe have an update whether this is even worth it for the next planning
Sounds
board
good.
meeting.
yeah,
Right, so I alerted my board that we were going to plan to be here for the 21st, for the meeting on the 21st.
Oh,
If we decide we're gonna go that extra step, my whole board will be here that night. Well, unless we have somebody who gets sick or whatever, but,
for some
so they're
reason,
all aware,
it's already
the
been
21st.
before
So if we decide to do that, then we'll be ready to go.
we just need
does
to
someone
get a,
from
And I will have the
Shopsy wanna
agenda.
work with- Does someone from Shopsy want to work with me and Pauline?
I can ask. I could ask them. I'd say I would do it, but I'm in the middle of trying to put my house back
I was
together,
just gonna say
so,
houses together.
from construction, so, yeah, I'm straight out.
So Jesse, are you okay with that plan?
I am. I would just, again, reiterate, I would really like to see the DHCD form and the Dropbox.
Okay.
Thanks.
And Alex, do you have anything to add?
No, not now. Thank you.
Okay. So that's the plan. I'll work with Colleen and someone from Shopsy if they want to, and we'll first find out what was received from grants and how much work is required and whether it's worth the investment.
and I think we'll have a better understanding of what this next step means as far as the work or action plan that's required in the January. Yeah, we'll have some more information on that.
And if you want us to come on November 21st,
We'll let you know.
just let me know as soon as you can, so I can alert my board.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks,
Nice
everyone.
see
Good to
you.
see you
Nice to
again.
see you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Rebecca.
Good to see you again.
Only an hour and a half home now.
Right, nice to be here. Well, really.
Drive safe.
You're a
Thanks.
good sport.
Nice to see you.
Thanks, everyone.
No, that's all right. Thanks, Gloria.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next item on the agenda, 25 Marlborough Road, St. Mark's Dormitory. Temporary occupancy permit. Good evening, gentlemen. Sorry for the wait. Always full of action here.
It's a place to be in town.
Seriously.
Up to date? Yes.
So, if you haven't seen it, you can drive down Marlborough Street here, the new dorm building at St. Mark's. So, and made a lot of progress, and, I think it was 2 years ago that you permitted,
Well,
Was
our
it
son is almost 3, so it was 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
He was born during,
flies.
right before one of the 4 or 5 meetings we had, so that's
Yeah.
how I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the planning board had approved site plan and with special permit. And then, all the conditions were satisfied with reconstruction, and construction started. There were some minor changes during construction to landscaping that you guys had sent in to us, and we reviewed it and we're okay with that. So last week, and this is Rob Kukowitz with St. Mark's CEO, CFO.
I wish, I'm the
No?
CFO.
CFO,
Yeah.
CFO, and
I am Brendan Carey, landscape architect at AT Leonard Associates.
yes.
And
Last
the-
time we met Andrew Leonard.
Yep,
Yes.
Andrew kind of took us through permitting and I'm the project manager, so, you
Okay.
know, day
And
to
then
day.
this is Kevin
Markowitz
Monkowitz.
with Design Technique.
Yes.
He's our owner's
and
representative, and John is also a design technique as
Right, you
well.
work with Lee Sullenberger.
Yes. Did you get all that, Bridget? Okay. She's everybody. All right, so last week, Rob came to us wanting to find out what was required to get sign off from the planning board occupancy permit. And unfortunately, they hadn't gotten to the point where they could do as-built yet, but they do want to move faculty and staff into the new building. The building code and the building department signed off on the building, move in over Thanksgiving. So I pointed out the code that said, you know, planning board could possibly be on board with a temporary certificate of occupancy if there are no life, public health and safety issues remaining at the site. And which time Rob explained to me that the stormwater system was in and the sewer system was in. They just hadn't finished landscaping and top coating the pavement and minor walkways. But, so I suggested that he submit a letter requesting to the planning board that in lieu of the as-bills being prepared, that they offer up a bond from remaining work. That come up with a bond for the remaining work, provide us a letter from the landscape architect stamp that what they're indicating on that sketch, that's red line, is in fact what still remains to be done. And then letters from an engineer certifying that the stormwater and sewer system is in and in substantial compliance with the approved plans, which is also included in the packet. And I reviewed those, and they also submitted a payment schedule which confirmed the work that still remained, which hasn't been paid for yet, which was the basis for the starting point of the bond that I recommended would be sufficient for the planning board to find signing off on a template. So what I asked for was that $307,000 plus the cost of the as-built, because they're not done yet, which is a typical thing we ask for bond like this. The 20% contingency, which is standard, based on Fussin' O'Neill's prior bond reviews and insurance. And then inflation, which unfortunately right now is 8.4%. So that came to a total amount of the $432,154.90. So that being said, based on this packet of information and the certificates and affidavits from the landscape architect and Haley Ward, the engineer providing these documents, and Haley Ward was the
Whitman,
engineer
Bingham.
of record.
Correct.
That's where we stand in. One long sentence, but maybe Bob, you want to add something if he wants to move. So,
Yeah, we're just excited to be here and be back. And as you can see, the lights are on and the electricity is connected, and we're really proud of this building. It's our first all-electric building. So and actually the first that our architects have ever designed, and the first that many of our professional contractors working on this building have ever been part of. So I was just reading the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Resources, Energy Resources released Stretch Energy Code, I think a month and a half ago, and it was referring to all electric and passive house, and we have both. So we're really proud of that. I know that's not part of this conversation, but we are seeking the 432,154 bonding for the final items that need to be done. We received rules for all the trades from the building commissioner Friday for the interior work that you noted. And I think that's it. We're really, you provided all the details. I don't know, we can go through the plan if you'd like to show you the red text that Brendan and his team highlighted that are the remaining items, if that helps, that make up the 307,000.
Did you say the fire department and the police department?
That actually, guys,
I'm not sure, but we have a 20-foot wide fire lane that connects the phase 1 portion to the north, down the west side of the building and to the parking on the south side. So we have a continuous fire lane installed. There is a temporary condition where part of it is not brick, it's asphalt to kind of help with circulation of some of the heavier lifts around the building. So that's a temporary condition, but it's still a 20-foot wide lane that is accessible.
I believe so, because they all approved all the fire alarms. Those were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Final.
sorry, the fire department did.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Did
those-
you post the no parking fire lane sign?
I think we
Yes.
did. That was condition 7 or 9, one of the two.
Yes.
Stuff posted,
And there's one other condition.
the lighting outside.
All the lighting is installed and operational. And to the plan.
And in what form of a bond? Is this a cash bond? Is this a?
What would you prefer?
So the difference is a performance bond is like an insurance policy versus some cash bond. which would be kind of-
Performance.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is just for teachers or staff.
Well, we would like the temp occupancy so that we could occupy with students when they come back from Thanksgiving break, if we don't have the full occupancy before then, but we anticipate having it by then, I believe. That's the goal. By the end of November for full C of O. I mean, to have all the requirements of the building done and ready for that. So our plan ideally is to have students moving in November 28th, if possible.
But this request for temporary is just until you think you're gonna have everything done by the end of November. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, correction, we're hitting the winter months, and so some of the landscape is not going to be going until much later. So the temp CFO is to allow occupancy for the building, which means occupancy for any humans in the building. Yeah, so it'd be adults and students is the thing.
I thought I heard you just say.
Faculty and students.
We're moving, we wanted to move faculty in, some of the faculty in a little bit earlier, if possible, to take the pressure off the moving company over Thanksgiving break for all the student items, if it's possible. So that's why we're talking about that.
Did you anticipate, before you can satisfy the requirements to release the bond?
So that's a good question. I think it depends on how much we can get done in the next month.
Right. It's kind of where the contingency about.
Top coat for the pavement and all the other items. So we're pushing as fast as we can with Erland, who's our general contractor, to get that done.
So worst case would be
spring of next year.
That's outside worst case.
But that would be full landscaping next spring.
Full landscaping.
right, and so the town code stipulates that for compliance, that no certificate of occupancy shall be issued unless all elements and conditions of the site plan are approved.
Okay.
In lieu of that, the planning board can sign off on a temporary certificate if there are no public health and safety type items still available or still need to be done.
Right, and that is done. We have the
Right.
temporary
So
certificate
you're
of
meeting
occupancy
that.
from the building department. So
Yeah.
that part is squared.
Right,
Now, the issue is the incomplete work related to what the
right,
bond was relates to, is there's $307,000.
Yeah.
On the Marzilli,
Yeah.
and that's the landscape, hardscape company.
the as-built, because that's what I'm wondering, the bond usually has a time frame.
Yeah.
Right, so it should be a bond that covers the time frame that they expect to complete the work.
So to the outside, most conservative would be through the spring then. Right?
Yeah, they have to tell us, because I know that the bonds we get for subdivisions or something like a year, and then they renew all the time, but we don't want this to linger a year, you know what I mean? And I don't anticipate that it would, because you want a functioning campus.
Right.
Inside and out, so I'm just bringing your attention to the fact that when we do submit this performance bond, we cognizant of our timeframe that we need, because when I go, if the planning board agrees to accept this approach,
Mhm.
when I go to sign off from planning on the certificate of occupancy, the temp, I request a contingency be written on that temporary certificate that says contingent upon finishing the landscaping and whatever, the as-built,
Mhm.
et cetera, that they don't get a final certificate of occupancy until those things are finished. Because that's what's required. So that's, I just want to make sure it's clear. The temp is to get you going,
Yeah.
but ultimately you want that little site just finished. Like I said, I know you will.
So, and the students that are gonna move in, are those the ones that are already on the other side of Utah? So I'm very much in favor of moving the students in there as soon as possible, especially with it getting darker, they don't have to cross 85.
Right.
Keep the building occupied, get it used, for safety reasons alone, in that aspect.
Relying on the seasoned members of the board, Andrew and Jesse, we haven't had this issue before. But this sounds like something that
Full faith that they're gonna meet their commitments, as they have. But many times they've come before us in the past. You know, It's a very competitive market with the business you're in.
Yes.
Building's beautiful. Utilize it. Put mothballs in the other one. Turn it down. Lower the impact, you know, the carbon footprint from the other one. Get them over there. I think
So it might be an opportunity.
there's a lot of benefits knowing that, you know, they can't finish, you know, putting in the hardscape or some plantings because the growing season's ended and everything. Again, from the justice standpoint of kids not having to cross 85 anymore, they have a. It would.
Jesse?
Hi, so I had a question about the parking that's been utilized, accessed through Park Street for the construction workers. I know that St. Mark's has leased some parking back there for the project. And when we, walk on the dirt path adjacent to that parking, there's a lot of trash and litter, ostensibly that has come from the people who have been parking in that lot. So I'm just wondering if it would be possible for St. Mark's to address and mitigate that, please.
Absolutely.
There's furious note-taking happening as you speak.
Yeah. We will definitely address that.
We can address that tomorrow at 9 o'clock with our guys.
Yeah, and it would be great, since I know there's if this work is going to continue, people could be
Jesse, just
asked not to litter in that area. Thank you.
Jesse, just to be clear, you're not talking about the actual parking lot itself, but the lower road that's Park Street Extension.
Correct. The Park Street
Actually
extension is
built
where the trash is falling into. I haven't gone up and inspected the parking lot itself, but the trash is coming from the parking lot, which is right, next to the extension.
We'll check it tomorrow.
And what you would do to walk through is just walk down Park Street past the auto body, the auto repair shop on the right, and walk down the dirt path, and you'll see the litter on the left next to the parking lot. The dirt path obviously cuts through and connects with Foley Drive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take care of that.
No, I'm in full support. I think it's just making sure, to Karina's point of what's the date, is it the date of, you'd have to let us know, but I think, giving it that opportunity to complete it through the stay of the semester, right? Until the students are out. Makes sense to me. So.
Yeah, I just have, I'm in support too. I just have one question about, there's a couple of brick walks, brick pathways that, are those sort of high priority? So those might get done this fall as opposed to in the spring. I just see it might be safety.
Yes, right now we have all our pathways to the doors are accessible. Some of them are brick and complete, and then others are temporary asphalt condition. It's anticipated this fall that we will take out the temporary asphalt connections and put in the final brick pavers, and then try to add the lawn and finish grading around those. So those will be installed this fall. It's really the next year is mostly landscaping, and that will kind of follow the same process we've done before with we'll submit a package to Karina with the straight native species to Southborough, neonic free, and
the changes we made with the open space
Yep.
commission's recommendations.
and we'll get your approval before we put anything in.
So the issues with those asphalt walkways that you mentioned, they're being held off completing bricks because there's still lifts traversing the property and putting in solar panels on the various elevations. So the brick walks can't support the lifts, so that's why it's being held off. So, and just to be clear, the landscaping will reboot in probably April. It'll take a while. There's $100,000 worth of landscaping that is on that requisition that we have. And then after that, the as-built will be done once that work is completed. And then that'll take a little bit of time for them to get approved and processed by the architect before it gets submitted back to you. So there is some real time. But the bulk of the work, exclusive of that softscape, should be done in the next 2 weeks. Once the lifts are off, the walkways can be completed. Then we'll just do some.
Guarantee it'll be done by Parents Weekend next week.
Yeah, that's definitely,
Guarantee.
that is a
So what's
priority.
that?
Yeah.
Guarantee.
Yes, it would
And
definitely.
Debbie, the
October.
plan is identified that we have for record that we are at temporary asphalt as walkways.
And just one more thing is all the parking lot spaces are striped right now, so. On the temporary or on the binder course, which we'll have to put a top coat on.
Right, and the engineer indicated in his letter that they would ensure that stormwater runs to the catch basins. At the top coat, not Green's top.
Yeah, I'm good with it. Thank you, Green. You did a lot of work on this.
Yeah, thank you
Appreciate it.
Thank you for
for
accommodating.
having us here, for your help here.
So do we need a vote, you think?
Um,
Or just like consensus?
I think we should, yeah. Correct. Vote to accept that you'll be accepting the bond. Based on.
Make a motion.
Or no?
No, I think the detail is okay. We'll, because that has to be realistic. You could say something in the motion,
Not to exceed 1 year.
something like that. Not to exceed 1 year.
Yeah, it's okay.
You'll probably have it done by alumni weekend.
Yeah, right.
Well, not to be flip, I know the town has their requirements, but the trustees' requirements outweigh the town.
Sometimes it's true.
I make a motion, we accept the St. Mark's School proposal for a bond of $432,154.90. Is that the right amount? Yes.
132, 154.90.
Right, that's what I'm looking at on the sheet.
Yep.
We put in bond for temporary occupancy for a period of no more than a year.
Is there a second?
Can I just ask a question? Do we need to say the specific bond we agreed to? Not just have it on the other one?
Performance.
Performance bond. As amended second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Mills, yes?
Stein, yes.
Luhan, yes.
Miriam, yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good luck.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, it looks
Thanks.
beautiful.
Yeah, nice job.
Want a tour anytime? Let us know.
And Rob,
Yeah.
did you get me a copy of that bond?
Yes.
Oh, actually, you know,
So I need to check in with you. You're just gonna cut the check for that. And that's what we sent and deliver to you directly, right?
you're gonna deliver me a performance bond.
Okay.
Which is like, you're gonna pay a bond.
Oh, because it's not the
agency.
cash. Okay,
Yeah.
yep,
And then you'll provide me with
the detail,
original bond that says the surety is for that amount. For
Okay.
that amount of time,
all right, we're gonna start working on that tomorrow.
yeah,
All right, I'll be in touch.
and it shouldn't cost you $400.
Okay, I hope not.
Thanks.
Just hold the credit card.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You missed an opportunity. I thought you were gonna say, yeah, make it out to me. And I'll never show up at work again.
I know we're.
Hey, Mimi. Hi, Mimi. Sorry to do this, but I'm gonna be signing off now. I'm kind of fighting a cold, so I'm gonna call it a night.
Right, Jesse, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to leave early. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a discussion, the process for the proposed water project connecting the MWRA through Southborough. And Karina sent a letter
On behalf of the planning board.
on behalf of the planning board. And although I didn't listen to their last meeting, I heard from the select board that they are going to reach back out to the Public Works Planning Board and say, open, transparent process. Have you heard anything?
I heard nothing.
Oh,
I didn't get to watch the meeting. but nothing through channels.
And I see Mr. Stivers is in the audience. Is that correct, Sam? Have I misspoken? Hi, Sam.
Yes, Mimi, hello. That is correct. Chair of the Select Board actually spoke with Mr. Boland and requested that the Public Works Planning Board take up this issue. And to my knowledge, he has not yet responded.
Okay.
And for Mimi, for folks who are interested, on the public DPW website, there is a page under the projects tab that actually has all of the communications and information that the select board has seen about this particular project. So if folks are interested in it, there's a fair amount of material there that folks could read. So that's a good information source. And it's my understanding that'll be updated periodically as we receive additional information.
Okay, that's good. But I think it's imperative that that this is discussed in an open process through the Public Works Planning Board so people can comment.
Well, I'm certainly prepared to do that as a member of the Public Works Planning Board, and I believe Ms. Demurray is as well. But we rely on the chairman to call meetings. So I await word from him.
All right, thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Anything else on this?
Oh, great job.
Thank
Thank you
sending
for doing
the letter.
Yes,
It's a great letter. We appreciate it. Team effort.
All right, the next item, the planning board budget FY '24.
Make a motion, we approve the planning board budget for FY
Oh,
24.
there is one, yeah.
Can we get it in? I'm working on it.
Whatever it is.
Yes. It will be very similar temporarily speaking because the personnel board is going to be providing feedback on the yearly salary increase. Right now, we've been instructed to use 3% for the budget, but the deadline for the budgets has been extended to the 28th of November instead of the 21st because they're going to be meeting and seeing if that's the approach they want to take. Because in that budget, we have a calculation for hours of staff. So I am working on that currently. And in the past, I know that one of the planning board members would be assigned to work on it with me in a sense that if I had any questions or they would vet it, and then we would just report, not just, but we would report back to the planning board and establish a budget, a draft budget. So once I have a draft, I can circulate it to the planning board members, and we still have the 21st to vote to approve it. I will have it done by then. So is there a planning board member?
Is there anyone who likes budgets?
Budget. Oh, all right.
Pivot tables, I love them.
Good, because it's a spreadsheet and that's all, and I have it all set up and we just adjusted, but it's a matter of discussing it, and potential projects and things we're working on now that we start to fund. And sometimes we have to, in other words, like, the open space inspections. Any.
And this is 2024.
2024, that's right. We're currently using the fiscal year 23.
Through 6/30.
So that's the goal, and then, I'll let you know when it's ready, and then I'll send it to you, look at it. And then
Thank you, Marna.
I hate budgets. I love budgets, but
I love to increase budgets.
yeah. So that's good, then I'll have my liaison. We'll report that once it's done at the next.
Very good. The next item, discussion item, outdoor illumination rules and regulations.
So I'm just gonna start saying that after the town meeting in 2021, where we had a draft rules and regulations once we got word from the AG that the zoning bylaw was accepted, the next step is for the planning board to accept the outdoor illumination rules and regulations. And there was a section on enforcement that Marnie and Sarah, who's with us, worked diligently on this, and at the time Marty Healy was with the select board, and he had some concerns or comments on the enforcement section, to which Marty worked on it a little bit more. So in the Dropbox, you saw a version that was from the town meeting, and then a version that Marty had even after it. And what that has read in. The version that Marnie updated is the one dated 9/22/21. If you don't have a copy.
And I can just make a comment. All I really did was I took residential. I basically, for non-residential, I basically submitted that applicants for major or minor site plan approval must provide a comprehensive photometric plan per code of the town. So we included that in the non-residential. And in the residential, we added the dark sky association, which is really these useful set of practical actions for neighbors to get along. And so it's really like, make friends, not enemies. Your neighbors probably don't even realize their lighting is bothersome. So it's a series of those types of things that are in this enforcement area. And it essentially says that we kept the same requirements, the pictures taken from the property showing fixtures like trespass and a measured reading from a lighting app. And that it still places the building department as the person who would will be issued. A letter indicating that there is or is not a violation will be issued regarding the complaint. So it puts the onus, continues to put the onus on the neighbor that's complaining, and it really just adds a lot of this language to try and be more neighborly upfront before filing the actual complaint.
Some of those comments also like geared towards the building commissioner?
No.
Or the inspector, it's all towards the residents.
It's really all about residentials and making sure that you want to, do the right thing as a neighbor.
And just to point out that, these can be modified by the planning board, these rules and regulations at a planning board meeting like this. So that, we don't have a lot of input tonight on this, and there may not be, but just to get something formalized so we can post this on the website and have something to hand out without saying it's draft. I know that Marty did reach out to the building commissioner to discuss some of this, but that was over the weekend, and I confirmed it today. We got another meeting tonight, et cetera. It's kind of a short time frame from my point of view, so. But I will, follow up with Laura and let her know that if there are any significant concerns, that they can always be brought back here. Yeah. And they can be addressed in a future meeting. So.
And I think that we've looked at these.
You have,
Yeah.
I think we just needed to finalize the rules and regulations.
So if the planning board votes on accepting this tonight, we will get rid of the edits as far as how it looks like that, formalize and accept the edits, and then that will add an acceptance date to the cover and we'll post them on the application. Yep.
Make a motion to accept the outdoor illumination rules and regulations as amended.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, we'll try yes.
Mills, yes.
Leanne, yes.
Mary, yes. All right.
I can do that. I'll update it for you.
Oh, thank
and
you.
send it.
Super.
And the budget?
Uh-huh.
Did you quit your job?
No.
The next item, the downtown district design guidelines. Oh,
Only if you don't need it.
so this is
similar, correct?
Yeah.
That we had these. The town meeting of the downtown district was
He's the
approved by town meeting.
correct, and you'll see that there was one version before this where the planning board had met and made several comments, and those were all accepted. So this is that version.
So when this was worked on by a representative from EDC, Julie Collins, so that she's here. Michael Washam, who was representing the Historical Commission, Lisa Braccio from the Select Board, and myself from the Planning Board, and I think Judy Barrett, who was the consultant at the time, also worked with us.
And again, it's just to get this formalized and accepted. If there are changes in the future, or any discussion, we can always revise and reviewed by the planning board.
I have a question is, I don't know what the town council said, but could you, it's mainly accept the proposal or the rejection of any parts? I wasn't on the planning board at the time, but I mean, was everything pretty much accepted?
Well, this version happens to be called on the file was to town council for review. So I'll have to look back if he actually said anything back on it. Was sent, it was meant to go to town council. It may have gone to town council. I just have to look back.
Oh, I see, it was meant to go to him, okay.
It may have gone, because the way I named the file, the intent was for town council review, and it may have gone with the article at the time.
Yeah.
Which I think it did.
I think it did, and it was a previous town council.
Yes, so I think it did, because when we send the warrant article for review, we also attach the policy. So then he has a complete picture. I don't recall any significant comments.
Anyone else in the board? Julie, did you have?
No, I just wanted to see what we were doing with it.
Oh,
So,
okay.
are you planning on just voting to accept or not
Yeah,
accept
yeah,
them? Okay,
yeah.
all right, okay.
And then if there are any, it only requires a vote of the planning board to change, so if there's any input from you or EDC.
Okay, yeah,
just
no, I
go forward.
think, when we went through this process last year, we all worked together and my committee had a chance to review it, so I think they were fine with it as is. I looked at the changes earlier, there wasn't anything really significant or substantive, so just cleaning stuff up, so.
Yeah.
Fine by me.
Very good. All right, thank you.
So I have one other question. We received a letter from a resident on Main Street, which is not related to this, but I thought he might actually be providing some comments. But it was a letter of concern about a couple of things, but hours of operations of potential business that might be moving into Main Street. And it made me wonder if hours of operations don't go into design guidelines, but where would they go? Would it be possible to define business hours or something for the district? Is that something in rules and regulations that we can figure out?
Usually it's through site plan. I don't think it's.
So it has to be in individual property.
That's what I've seen in the history of the short time I've been here. That you usually see in the ZBA decision, if there's big concerns from the neighborhood or whatever, somebody has a concern, they'll condition it in that. As well as the planning board, I've seen that. The only place in the code where I see time frames is on lighting. Yeah, on the outdoor illumination, the planning board has discretion on some hours after a certain time frame. There's something there. But I haven't seen it regularly. I've seen it for that time.
Yeah, I don't know if it can go in design guidelines or some sort of guidelines, not these guidelines, but to say, okay, this is a both residential and, retail and sort of shops are sort of 9 to 5 or something. Maybe the pizza place stays open, like there's never a problem. But that, looking to, for anybody who's moving in, they, we're setting up a retail shop, but it's not something like, midnight parties are really recommended. Where would the planning board put that sort of information as a guideline, not as a manual?
Well, I think each project is very unique,
So it's
very difficult to broad base hours like that. But Marty or Andrew, whoever mentioned just how uses also regulate some of that. So if you're in a certain district, they know certain uses accommodate certain activities which they don't want in that district, so they restrict it by the use, so that would require a special permit if you had something that was more expensive. Yeah, and then they negotiate that as part of the.
We're going to accept it.
Yes. So once, assuming these are accepted, or some version of these are accepted, will these be posted through the town website? How is that going to be handled?
We're hoping to put it on the planning website where the applications are.
Great.
So there won't necessarily be an applicant, but we'll figure it out, we'll put it somewhere that makes sense. Sites need a little work anyway, so.
Website needs to make a little more sense.
That's your best word.
But yeah, that's the goal. I think the first place will be with the applications.
Make a motion to accept the design guidelines for South Road Downtown District as presented.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? David Latrell, yes.
Mills, yes.
Julian, yes. Mary, yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for
Thank you.
late night. It is the place to be though, so.
Totally,
Come back, bring some friends.
It's actually nice to be in person. We did
I
a
know.
in-person meeting a couple of weeks ago. Great.
Thank you too. Which brings us to other business properly before the board. Members report.
Okay, I'm trying to make this quick. We do have a topic that I know Debbie wanted to speak to. Annual town meeting will be March 23rd, 2023. The charter school, we found out today, is a budget calendar for fiscal year 24 with a calendar. So the warrant is open, and I just want to bring your attention to that. If there are any articles that the planning board wants to propose, we should have placeholders on there. So maybe by the next meeting, unless we have any.
I'd like to bring trees back. If anyone needs some food. Yeah. So I was going to amend the trees. to make them more palatable, and I'll have an amended version for the next meeting for discussion.
We've got to address the size of the septic system.
Parties. Sunday.
And started to talk with the Board of Health about the industrial noise bylaw. Just proposed a couple of different, two different approaches. One is, I think I've left the board. One is Westboro's, kind of like standing at the property line, no audible noise coming from the neighbor, kind of like this people still or whatever from the lighting. And the other is more, using instruments and stuff like that. So two very different approaches, and I haven't yet found that for them. But I'd like to pursue that. If the board, I think I was supposed to I have an action to kind of find some information from the Board of Health, sense what kind of interest they have, and then bring it back to see one or something that they like, that they might work.
So
just
would that
remember,
be an amendment to our current noise bylaw?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I think that noise bylaw committee attempted to put industrial noise in there. Heather Alford was, the member from the Board of Health. And then I think it was taken off because the select board didn't think it was ready and maybe not, it just wasn't ready. I found it in some bylaws in environmental controls in a different section. In Westboro's, for example, their section of bylaws. So I don't know. We have to look at where it would go. And another one that I'd like, maybe not for this spring meeting, because it might be too many, but another one I'd like to consider is traffic coming from commercial and industrial properties onto residential roadways. And there's some case law that I sent along from some very old cases from 1966. But also what prompted me was the Long Cadillac situation, which ended up to be not a lawsuit, but I think it was settled. Actually, but they cite some cases from 1966, which are very, very interesting, and I'd like to present that to the board. I think that's relevant because we have occasionally things like this pop up, where we have developers who purchase a property and it's very, commercial industrial is very close to residential neighborhoods. And so, it might be purchasing a driveway or a little parcel or another lot. And it's really unclear, are they looking for access onto residential roads? So there's some really interesting case law, does go way back, that, pretty strong. And, I'm looking for examples in other town code to see if they have such a bylaw. But, I think it's possible that we might see something like this in the future. And we've seen it like in the past. So I'd like to see if that's something that would be a zoning bylaw. I'd like to see, but let's have it discussed to see if we want to bring it.
The case law, I apologize. I haven't had a chance to read through the case law. So is that like a permit was approved with the condition that it didn't allow industrial traffic on residential roads, or was it a bylaw that was?
No, it wasn't a bylaw that. Do you want me to look them up really quickly, or do we want to schedule another time to talk about it?
We can talk about it. Which meeting.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah, so,
interesting premise.
yeah. Yeah, and I think, in terms of like what the planning board is doing and trying to preserve, scenic roads, these are mainly scenic roads, where, but they're just sensitive roadways, they don't have to be scenic. But it creates a whole different set of problems when you have commercial and industrial traffic coming onto residential roads. In one of the cases, and I'll put some slides together, maybe we can, if I can have some time next meeting, but one of the cases is actually a development that was looking at a residential development and to some access onto the residential road, which created a big problem. So that wasn't commercial industrial, and that was case law that created unsafe situation. So
A residential subdivision?
I think it was a residential. I have to look at the.
Because that's where they go. Residential roads go onto residential.
Yeah. Have to look into that though.
I guess the question that I have is noise our purview. Like, are we allowed to comment on that? That's what the big Board of Health.
Yeah, so in Westboro, noise is regulated under environmental controls, and it's regulated by the plan.
I don't know.
But I don't know what we do in Southborough, but is it Board of Health? So I have to connect back with them to see what, have some discussions.
So,
And I'm happy to work with them, it doesn't matter which, you know.
We can bring general bylaws forward. Yeah.
so for now, in order to get placeholders on the warrant, we have the tree protection. Are we going to do the scenic roads?
I can definitely postpone it.
Do we want anything, either of the two of Debbie's, are those for future town meeting, or is there a placeholder for this current one?
Let's see, so one,
One was the industrial noise bylaw, and the other one was, I think, we still need to talk more about is the traffic from commercial, industrial through residential.
yeah, that one I'd like to present to the board to see if it's even like something that we're interested to do. I'm interested in that one too. The industrial noise bylaw is actually potentially a very simple one. It's either simple or very complicated. Very complicated.
So we
have
can
to have-
always remove the placeholder. But in order to get a placeholder on, and then you can determine, do we really want to pursue this now or not, based on more information.
Yeah, okay, so it's under environmental controls and it'd be noise, industrial noise. Or I think they call it standing noise or something like that.
People will understand industrial noise.
Yes, because it could be kind of.
And then I have one, which we still have to figure out, based on town council's feedback to building commissioner. When the downtown district was created, signage wasn't addressed in the sign bylaw. So there's a chart that by the zone, your maximum height, maximum size, square footage, etc. And there's still the BV district. Yeah, and it doesn't say downtown, so, people are coming with projects now, and his hands are a little bit tied. We feel like it should default to BV district, which is where the town council told time. So if we put a placeholder on it, I just simply add the words downtown district next to BV district, so at least it's the same.
That makes
And
sense.
it's clear. We want to. Okay. Okay, anything else on that for now? All right, so we'll start with those. Sarah Hecker, as consultant for Shopsy, provided some research on general land area minimum called GLAM for safe harbor status. And in response to Mari's question to Shopsy. So that's pretty new, so we have to look at that, and see where that stands. I believe it's pretty extensive. The municipal technology committee was looking for input on the new town website. So if you have any comments, I sent you an email. You can talk to them. Tennessee Gas had submitted some plans for mowing along the transmission lines, and Colleen's waiting for feedback on if anything weird crossing any of the right of ways, like Pine Hill or something, if there was anything over a foot and a half. An inch and a half, a foot and a half, that they're cutting. So we're waiting to hear back. They didn't think so. They think it's all just clearing to prevent stuff from going to that
Right.
size.
Well, they said mowing, but then in that letter they sent, it talked about trees.
Yeah.
So the trees are 3 years, he said to me. 2 years, no, next year.
Yeah, those are still.
They did trim the trees, but.
But
not-
just to get them to confirm and writing.
Yep. Colleen sent them an email to ask them.
And it's only a little, there's like Pine Hill and that Waveney that I've never even heard of that. It was before me, like,
Michael Fleischman had submitted some concerns about trees along his property. I'm not sure what the status is of that is right now, but just be aware that as part of one of the road improvement projects, reported them that he has some trees that, I don't know if they're on his property or right away, but is concerned that they will cut down.
That's a numbered street.
Yeah,
Yeah. And they're right, like, door, driveway, truth, like they're right there. It's, you know, old home. which was built right out in the woods.
okay. Deb, you had requested to talk about the planning board meeting. I just wanted to get that as a future discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think the bigger one, that you had questions about St. Mark's relocation, the stormwater management, stormwater and the trees, so. I believe the select board is trying to tend to mitigation for the stone wall. Couple of trees that were cut down there that were all termite. So we're waiting to still hear back on whether that planning board submitted to the select board.
So, can I discuss that now? or- So, yes, it wrote that great letter about public safety and the stone wall that was removed at the intersection. I'm interested to know, how do we move forward on, it appears that at one of the select board meetings I was attending or zoomed into, there was a discussion about not doing any more work at St. Mark's with regards to moving that intersection until it goes, the land swap, et cetera, until it goes to town meeting. And it was brought up that now that we have the time, I think properly, I think Ms. Braccio brought up the idea that it would be time for planning board to take care of a couple of items. I'm not using the right words. I believe she might have been talking about trees and stone walls. And then Mr. Dennington brought up moving up the intersection. And now I wasn't a planning board member at the time, so I went back and I looked, and I remember that there were some joint meetings held with the select board and town council. I'd be interested to get a copy of, as a planning board member now, what town council had to say. But I did watch the Zoom meetings, and I do think that planning board has a role in, moving the intersection. I think everybody agreed, but it was a matter of timing. And now that we have the time, I'm not sure what the steps are. It appeared Mr. Dennington was saying, okay, now we can get this report from the planning board. So I'd be interested to work towards whatever that deliverable is. I have serious concerns about that intersection. It appears to me that the intersection, a couple of things. The intersection, the very tip of the intersection was moved years ago. And I had sent some photos to Colleen and Karina, and that looked like it was just to align St. Mark's Street with sort of the driveway to St. Mark's across the street, because you sort of had to take this funny turn if you were gonna, turn right to turn left or something like that. It was probably unsafe. So, but in doing that, in moving the public way, it created a little, I guess, an old public way. And that is where the town licenses a parcel to St. Mark's, where they put up that stone wall. It appears this is back in 2008 or something. The pictures are all still online. You look up Google Maps. So I have a copy of that license agreement. And, it clearly says, if there's anything, it has to do with functioning or anything with this wall. Then it's part of this license agreement, what to do about it. I've heard throughout the years, and I don't know if this is true or not, that wall may be contributing to some of the water that's, coming down to the library parking lot. I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if anybody's looked into it, but I am concerned mainly, to get to the point, that there's an intersection that's about to be moved. St. Mark's, road with Route 85. And the reason seems to be to fix a drainage problem, which appears to be that there's already a lot of work that's been done. but I haven't found anything in writing that's actually going to fix the drainage problem. Although the bunch of engineers worked on it, and I'm sure that is the case. But what's troubling to me is I did reach out to the library board of trustees, 2 trustees members, and I didn't get to speak to Ryan Donovan. But nobody's talked to the library about their flooding problem. And I understand that they have been tracking it for months and years. And I just find that, you know, if we're going to write a letter about concern about moving this intersection, the first thing I want to make sure is it going to fix the flooding problem at the library, or is it going to make it worse? And, you know, because there's a lot of things that have slowly happened over the years. One of them, you know, moving that intersection and creating that stone wall. It's a beautiful stone wall. It's very big and long, but we, you know, whether that contributes anything, I don't really know. There
Do
is.
you know if the ground, if the water in the library is groundwater or from like sheet runoff running into the building? Because sometimes water comes up to the cellar because your groundwater elevation is just what it is.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. One of the trustees members told me that they have these monthly meetings or quarterly, and it's been on there for years. They track it, they know, but I don't have that information. I was attempting to reach out to get maybe a copy of those, the reports or what the records might look like. But it just occurs to me that if we're gonna move that intersection, we really ought to make sure that it doesn't make the situation at the library worse.
So is it still flooding? Or I thought they
It
fixed
is,
that?
it is. And
The
I just
roadway,
think
right, or the library.
the library, not the library, yeah. So, if I were to write a letter or report to the select board, whatever the deliverable is, you know, these are some of the things that I would like to bring up. And there's 2 more. There's the stormwater and erosion control under the Conservation Commission, Town Bylaw 174-13-5C. The Conservation Commission must review the project for stormwater and erosion control if 50% of the soil is disrupted. Yes, that's yes. The property is not town-owned. That's yes, it's St. Mark's. And the new street has not gone to the planning board. That's yes. So in my opinion, Conservation Commission must look at the stormwater and erosion control of that intersection. And I don't know if anybody has given them the plans. We've not received the plans, and that is very clear to me. So, you know, I've been very vocal about, you know, being a stickler for these, adhering to bylaw. And the last part, and I brought this up before, is St. Mark's has the right to do with the property what they want to do. However, under 174-8212 use regulations discusses parking for more than 3 vehicles in residential A, the triangle parking lot of St. Mark's Triangle, where they're using that area as a parking lot. In my opinion, I want to find out if the board agrees, it requires major site plan approval. And that specific code talks about the 3 vehicles. I don't have the wording in front of me, but as an accessory to the primary use. There's no primary use on that lot. So that makes it kind of difficult. Ball fields over are not on that lot. They're a different lot. So there's a couple of, you know, big ticket items, I think. I was down looking at that stone wall last weekend. And St. Mark's is now advertising. They've got it, you know, it's been on their website where to park. And they have the picture of the 55 lot parking lot that we've seen as part of the St. Mark's renovation or whatever. They have a picture of that parking lot, and you know, telling people where they should park. Okay, it's on their website, but then when I was downtown, there's now a new sign right in front of their ballpark, which it's a big P for parking right at that triangle lot. So that's not an approved use of the lot. And I think the planning board should do something about it, but what to do? We don't actually have the plans. We've seen stuff on the DPW, St. Mark's working group has some plans. I've never seen the engineering plans, but I know that they're posted online. I think. And so I just wonder, what are the next steps to tackle these things? And I think all these things fall under the planning board.
Is this the St. Mark's property?
Well, it is, it's
Saying, right?
residential A St. Mark's property, yeah. The triangle is, yeah.
That's
Well,
being affected.
Yes,
Yeah, that's being.
yes. Yes, and as you know, so is, where the road is being moved. We haven't done the land swap yet, so that's private property too. And then the elephant in the room is the violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 3, I think, which is maybe I'm going to put the wrong one, Section 5, municipal funds for private use. So that's not a planning board issue, but if I were to write a letter, it's.
Violation.
And the other two, 15C, right, I feel like Corinne has already started those two, but there's so many violations here. I mean, I think that we're starting to chip away at them. But it's
Do you
pretty,
feel these are violations by St. Mark's?
well, I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that because there is the municipal reciprocal license agreement. I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that it's predicated on easements, which were not voted on at town meeting. So I don't think it's valid, but I've heard other people say it's valid. And so
Would that put it in the realm of the select board asking the Public Works Planning Board to have a meeting with the entities involved?
well, this is an
Such as-
unusual example because if you think about Public Works Planning Board and what their charge is, this St. Mark's moving an intersection, renovation project or whatever you call it, would be something I think that would go to the Public Works Planning Board, and I've actually asked that it go to the Public Works. But in terms of, is the St. Mark's, are they even aware, or have they just let the town do whatever they want under the agreement? Like, that's a piece of it I don't really know.
Yeah, well, I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't
the
know
facts of
either.
it, but I think my instinct would say, my impression would be that the Public Works Planning Board, as a research arm of the select board, would investigate by interviewing or meeting with St. Mark's, or asking them to read, saying, these are the things we have concerned about, what is your take? And then, take that back to the select. I don't know, just sounds like somebody needs to have a meeting with them.
Oh, yeah, it does, but I mean,
In a bigger picture sense, as opposed to an application, because there's multiple levels of concerns. It's not just planning board application, right? It's also.
I think it's conservation, I think it's planning. But I mean, so back to like what I guess I am trying to ask is, there were already a couple of joint meetings with the select board and town council. And so are we in a position now where we can write this report? Or do we need to be asked? Did Mr. Dennington ask us? He brought it up, but does it have, has to be formal?
Yeah, well, we're writing a report on the roads. So way back a year plus ago, when we had that joint meeting. Town administrator started the meeting with saying, we will get the plans to the planning board. But then town council had a different opinion from what
Yes, that was it.
But that I think was because the work had already started. If I understood, I couldn't follow the whole thing because I wasn't.
It had
a
to do
board
with
member.
it being public versus private. I think that town council said that at the time, that once it becomes public, then it would come to the planning board for that review of a changing whatever road. Wasn't that the gist was between?
He was using things like capital R relocation versus little r relocation. Was specifically was how he referred to
Because
it.
it like, yeah.
And it was
intersection.
after the work had been done.
Yeah.
So I'm not aware, but it didn't really sound legally to me.
I thought it had to do with the fact that the work had already been done and there was some retrofitting and whether it could be retrofitted. I think we're in a different position now because, you know, as the select board said, we have time now to address some of these issues. The question is, what really falls under the planning board? I think, you know, parking is one.
So that's an interesting question,
And
whether
relocation.
St. Mark's knows that they need to come before planning board for site plan, which the town said we'll just give you a parking.
Well, that's the thing. I have not seen anything in writing, and, you know, St. Mark's was just here tonight and they've been very, you know, open and cordial and working with the town. I would think if they're planning on paving and putting in a 55 car space parking lot, then they would know. They have to put in an intersect plan.
How does this relate to the grant that was?
So they have proposed gravel park.
Debbie, I think this, my recollection, I would just ask who is the same as, I thought the questions came up because it was a grant money that was being used on private property.
Oh. I mean,
So
nothing
this
with the
is-
town council?
This
No, but the
is
whole
the town's
St. Mark's was
plan.
being funded through a grant over there.
So we read that whole conversation with town council. I was in Florida on vacation because I remember attending this. It was specifically around the concern that the trees and the stone walls were taken down. And so that's how that got into, because we never even knew any of this was happening until people started saying, where about the trees go. So it was more of a reactionary versus a proactive.
In Mass General Law, and I can't think of I don't know the section, the chapter in the section right offhand, but it said relocation of a road shall go before the.
It's 81 something.
It's in something.
Yeah. And that was the-
No, we're looking at 81 extra. Yeah, some artists. I know what you're talking about. It was what we cited where if a roadway changes, a section of roadway is relocated, how else do you get the zoning map updated? Regardless if it's a small intersection change or shift, there has to, the town had to have an official street map, which we don't. We have a zoning map, but we don't have an official street map that was approved at town meeting. Therefore, it said something about planning board reviews it, but then there was another one that says if you don't have a street map, the planning board still reviews the relocation and reports on it.
Shall not be moved without a report from the planning board.
Right.
Well, that's my question is, but it's a process question, I think. Can we write a report to the select board, or do we need to be asked? I don't read it, the regulation when it says shall, that we have to be asked.
Well, we need the plans, a official submission of the plans in order to come.
Right. Right.
So I think all of those things have to come.
Can we request it?
A proactive outreach, just to say, now that we do have time, these are the things that we discussed at our planning board. Worth having.
Well, to follow up on the select board.
Yeah.
Right, it was several meetings ago now, I think, a couple of meetings, I don't remember the date, but, yeah, 2 select board members. You know, we're talking about, yeah. Oh, yes, it was. sidebar.
I have a whole file on it.
I'm sure you do.
I just have to get it in a reference, and I have copies of the Master General Law. And
Yeah, I mean, my
Feedback from
major,
town council.
my major concern, to be honest, all this other stuff aside, is this is one of the oldest roads in town. What is the reason that the intersection is being moved? I mean, let's really be honest. Is it to fix a drainage problem? Well, then someone should have talked to the library. Because they're the
Should have been
ones.
drainage plans up front to show this is gonna fix it.
Yes, that's what makes it very difficult, and we know time-wise that the parking lot plans came up before, but all that aside, we need to make, I think it's up to us to make sure that if that is really the, reason to move the intersection,
Let's do it the right way.
let's do it the right, otherwise, why are we moving the intersection?
So could maybe, Debbie, because you're the most informed, could Debbie possibly draft some bullet point items to discuss at the next meeting to create a problem?
Yeah.
Right, if you have like the context of the issues that you're concerned with, and then the planning board can agree on which issues they want to bring forward. They may not want to bring all of them, they may just want to focus on one or two. And then, so if you draft some bullet items, then at the next meeting, we'll have it on the agenda as an official agenda item, not in planning report, and then the planning board can act or move on, have a consensus on which ones to attack. That'll be step one, otherwise we're gonna keep going in a circle. Because we know all the different
I
things,
know.
but we can't wrap our arms around them all, so maybe we pick a few to start with and then focus on those, and then the others will flush out.
Yeah, that'd be great, and I hope to connect with Brian Donovan at the library, so he can fill me in on the issues. Okay. And,
Then we'll have better feedback on what Mass General Law that was and the town council response that we received. We set the meeting minutes.
Motion to approve meeting minutes from September 12th, 2022 is written.
We have one small edit on page, on line
As
215 from me, DPW was misspelled. We had DWP.
As amended.
Had to find something.
Second. As amended.
I have a motion with second and discussion. All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Yes, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demuriers.
Any adjustments on the next two?
No.
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as written for September 26th, 2022 and October 3rd, 2022 as written.
Second.
Motion with second and discussion. All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Yes, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Is that both of them, the last two?
Yes,
Combo them?
we did.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. Let's have a window conversation. Latrell, yes.
Yes, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Excellent.
So find that master law on the road location.